creating my order for that framework because I decided now that Apple's in shitified and Microsoft's in shitified and iOS is in shitified and iPad OS is in shitified, the only future
Wait, what happened? How are they all in shitified?
Because they all suck. Because they all showing ads now. Apple's now showing ads in the wallet. So I decided, you know what I need? I need Linux.
Okay.
I need Arch Linux. So I'm going to buy a heavy-duty, maxed-out AMD 128 gigabyte RAM, 8 terabyte storage machine. Make it my server, put it on the Ethernet, and then buy a bunch of thin clients all over the house.
Everything you said is so old-fashioned.
It's so old-fashioned, but everything old is new again. And then I won't have to worry ever again. I will just because that machine will be good for till I'm dead.
Huh. Your last computer.
My last computer, right? And it's an AI machine, so I should be able to put a local model on there and have Jarvis in the house.
All right, let's see if YouTube.
Apparently, it's fixed. Burke says it's fixed.
If Burke says it's fixed, then I think we can start.
Burke is the fixer. Anthony's a fixer. Burke is the tester.
Oh, he's the Burke.
It's possible I've read this to you before, but this is the most wonderful AI summary of in this case, the Wizard of Oz. That it's just the best.
Let's hear it.
It says, transported to a surreal landscape, a young girl kills the first person she meets and then teams up with 3 strangers to kill again. It's 100% accurate.
Honestly, that is the most accurate summary of Wizard of Oz ever.
AI did that?
Well, supposedly, right?
I think a human did that.
But it's beautiful.
It's beautiful, perfect.
Oh,
no notes.
Burke lied. It's not fixed.
What's not fixed?
It's that guy with all caps.
I blame Burke.
He's the scapegoat.
He's the
official Twit scapegoat.
He's so much.
What do you guys up there in Canada do for the 4th of July?
Laugh at Americans. I'm going to America for that.
Are you? You going to go down to Vancouver to watch the fireworks?
No, we had fireworks yesterday for July 1st.
Oh, that's right. You had July 1st. You just said, we're going to start early. Ha.
Well, you just celebrate every month now in Canada? That must be
it's
nice.
It's a new month.
That's a regular thing.
Guess what country we're not
now? Well, we can either, it seems like it's fine in other destinations, so we can either just roll with it, or the only thing else we could do is like ditch this studio and restart the whole thing. Like close it, everyone leave.
I love it.
Well, you want to do that?
I'd
not
rather
really,
not.
but
how bad, YouTubers? Phoenix Warp Horizon Brave. How bad is it? John says,
"Do it again, baby."
Nice. This is what
I'm in the camp of let's just roll with it, but
we're already 20 minutes late.
Exactly.
And we'll late schmate. The show title is Everyone Leave.
I was going to go with late schmate. But
and that is the edge with plus. Everyone.
All right, let's start. Let's just do it. And sorry, YouTube.
Go to Twitch.
Go to Twitch. I see my camera is whopper jawed again.
Whopper jawed.
I love that.
Do love a whopper jaw.
Somebody got mad at me and said, the word doozer, D-O-U-S-E-R, is pejorative. I said, I'm not calling you doozers. I'm calling you dozers.
There you go.
That's not pejorative. It just means you're napping.
Nice.
That was more polite than it needed to be.
I can make it not polite.
It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we're covering the latest news from Microsoft. Hello, all you winners. There is Paul Thurrott.
Sure.
Somebody said I can't call people dozers anymore. It's rude. But it goes with winners. Winners and dozers. Get it? Windows. Anyway, I don't know. Hi, Paul. Thurrott.com. Good to see you, my friend, in Lower Macungie. No,
I appreciate you finally explaining that after 2 years or whatever it's been.
You didn't know? I thought it was
Some of them
obvious.
were a little slow on the uptake.
Windows. Winners and dozers. Anyway. Also, Richard Campbell, who has already celebrated the 4th of July because Canadians are that way.
Yeah, it's the 1st of July. It was Confederation.
We sang "Oh Canada" on the show yesterday.
That's nice.
We're not really big fans of the Confederation around here, but I see what you're saying.
You guys have a revolution. We filled in the form. It's a little more civilized. You know?
I decided I used to have, on our lower thirds we have the locations, everybody's actual locale.
Mhm.
And Richard Campbell's in Mad Park, and Paul Thurrott didn't write his in, but he's in Macungie.
Sorry.
But I decided, I used to say Petaluma, California, USA. Now I'm saying Petaluma, the free state of California.
Nice.
Oh,
Okay.
oh boy, we're getting
that's
there.
The path we're on. Huh?
We're all flying the bear flag from now on, and here we
This
are
is,
in the Bear
like
Republic.
the day after, post-apocalyptic.
It's totally after the day after. All right, actually, I'm being levitus. Is there a noun? I'm being levacious.
Levacious. I don't know that that's the word. Maybe.
I'm trying to spread levity.
There you go. You're being
Because-
levitatious.
The news this morning was kind of gloomy.
Yeah. I mean, we knew this was coming, right? We'd heard about this in advance. I thought we'd just kind of rip the Band-Aid off and get rid of this one right up top, but Microsoft has started implementing the layoffs we've been talking about for a while. I will tell you, they're maybe predictably a little touchy about this, because we had written what we wrote, and they actually contacted us. And they were like, "Where did you hear this? Where did you hear this?" They wanted to talk about sources and some of the claims we had made. And it was like, okay, so some of this we can't actually tell you, but anywho, through our own sources, through third parties like the Seattle Times, Bloomberg, Windows Central, etc., the story that is emerging is that approximately 9,000 employees are being laid off. Many of them, Microsoft says not most of them, but I have at least one source who has said it is in fact over 50% of them, but whatever, are from Xbox/Microsoft Gaming. This is about 4% of the workforce, and this compares to
That's a lot of people. Holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, it was especially on top of 6,000 that were laid off in May, and then what was the earlier one, February or March or whenever, early in the year.
This from a company that has historic profits.
Yeah, the most highest market cap in the world.
Yeah, we're gonna address that in a sense, because one of the things that leaked that I didn't get personally, but has been published in many places, was a letter from Phil Spencer to the team, Phil Spencer being head of Xbox, kind of explaining it. This is I don't want to, not masterclass, but this was almost like written by, if AI was the legal department, this is the summary they would have written. And it's very careful not to be specific in places where people like me and you guys would be looking for some hint about the future and what this says about their strategy. And there is nothing there of that note. But he does sort of address kind of up front the juxtaposition, I guess, of the most successful company on earth. And then this business, which thanks to Activision Blizzard now has more people playing games, more hours spent gaming, etc., than ever before. Okay, but why? And he really, I don't want to say punts it, but he kind of pushes it out to the broader corporate strategy, right? Based on tough decisions we made previously, make choices now for continued success in future years. Key part of that is discipline, prioritizing the strongest opportunities. If this sounds familiar, it's because what Microsoft says generally about layoffs in this, especially in this AI era. And this isn't in the notes anywhere, but there was a recent internal communication that was like, you are using AI. So if you're not, leave. And if you think you're going to work here, know how to use AI, because everyone is using AI here. And one of the things they're very careful not to say is that these layoffs have anything to do with AI. But I don't know. Maybe.
So what do they? Or is
I
it
know.
just right
What did they say?
sizing? I mean, what are we doing?
So
here?
if you were to so I used to say this about like a Satya Nadella speech, right, when he first became CEO. Like, if you put this in a Word and like use the summary thing, it would come up with a blank document, because honestly, it doesn't really say anything of import. Like, in other words, it doesn't say, like, for example, one of the challenges we've had in Xbox is selling hardware. So we're really going to back off from that and go at this from a game publisher perspective, which, by the way, is absolutely what they're doing. But they can't say that, right? They can't say that for so many reasons, but the big one is it would probably submarine the entire, business if they did that, because a big chunk of the user base is still very much wrapped up in, the Xbox hardware, the consoles and things like that. So I think they're trying to ease into it. So, the Xbox Alley thing, and then Microsoft will or will not make one too. And then myself and others have supposed, or, guessed or educated guessed, whatever, that they are going to do third-party hardware, Windows, basically, for consoles, and then that will let them kind of back out of it gracefully, right? They're not abandoning that market. In fact, if anything, we're expanding that market. There's you can kind of see the marketing that's going to occur there. But man, you read this and it's like it doesn't say anything. The success we're currently seeing, meaning in Xbox or Microsoft Gaming, is based on tough decisions we've made previously. Now, parsing that, I would say
You mean buying Activision Blizzard?
Yeah, the success that Xbox is seeing, meaning games, like actual games, and also that meaning on other platforms, was the result of Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard, right? The success Xbox is not seeing is not addressed here, right? And that's hardware sales. Right? That's like they literally don't. He doesn't really say that. I mean, the word hardware is in here.
Are most of the people hardware people that they're letting go?
Well, we don't know anything about that yet. No, it looks like this is pretty broad, honestly. So sort of tied to this is way later in the notes, but there's a game studio. It's called The Initiative, and they were making a reboot of Perfect Dark. Perfect Dark was OG Xbox, and I think Perfect Dark Zero, I believe, debuted with the Xbox 360. So they were going to go back and redo this thing. They've actually shut down that studio, and they've canceled that reboot.
Huh.
And yeah, I don't know. So, and there's a whole, and they also made were making something called Everwild, which I think was like an open world kind of a game. But yeah, so it's not just hardware, right? This is more kind of broad gaming industry layoffs or whatever. Even Raven, right, which makes some of the Call of Duty games or parts of some of the Call of Duty games is experiencing layoffs, right? So it's likely in the next few days, weeks, whatever, we're going to learn about maybe more studios either contracting or disappearing, even games that we were expecting not happening. It's still kind of fog of war. Like this is just, happening. Like as we started writing about this today, we were getting more information in, as the day went on. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, the Phil Spencer email, or I guess it's an email, is interesting to me only in that it really doesn't say anything. Prioritizing our opportunities, yes.
But this is legal putting.
That's what I mean. Someone, yeah. So right. Someone had commented like, I really like this guy, but man, this is so mealy-mouthed. This is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know that he had a choice. I look, whatever anyone thinks of Phil Spencer, he is a plain spoken everyman. He's not he doesn't make stuff up. He doesn't talk. He's not a marketing idiot. He's a real human being. This doesn't read like something he would say, it's just, I think he had to do this, right? What else could you do? So,
well, at this particular moment, everybody's, you really get the sense that they're very worried about a legal labor lashback.
Yep.
In this 9,000 are a lot of foreign workers, which were really part of the May ones, and it's taken this long to get it through, just because it's harder to lay off in anywhere other than the U.S. The U.S. is a at will workspace. Everyone else has more rights than that, so it's just taken time to process those things. But
I mean,
we're still seeing the numbers coming in.
Yeah, there are little things that kind of address this. It's interesting you say this because employees that are being let go are encouraged to explore open positions elsewhere inside Microsoft Gaming, where their applications will be given priority review. Not language I've seen before, right? I mean, and it seems designed to like, you're probably getting ready to get a class action going, but hold on a second, this is a business decision, whatever. I don't know. He talks, it's bizarre. He talks about opportunities. He talks about momentum. He talks about success. And it's like, guys, you're I mean, look, let's say 50% is correct. Let's say it's less than, let's say it's only, 40% or whatever, 45%. You're laying off several thousand people.
Yeah.
It's, we will someday know what happened this year or this couple of years, but right now,
Yeah, right now it doesn't make sense. Right now their market cap is $3.7 trillion.
Yep.
They've had record quarter
It's
after record quarter.
3.7. It's already up
crazy.
that high.
Yeah.
Holy camole!
yeah. And
So what is it for the year? 25,000 people, something like that.
20.
It's at least, it's probably close to 20. I don't have all the
18
numbers
to
right in front of
20,
me.
something like that. It
Yeah,
was
somewhere there.
2,500 in January, but those were performance
Six.
layoffs.
Yep.
And
Another
then
6 and 9 is
6 in
15
May.
and 20. So that's
Yeah.
17.5. So yeah, it's probably somewhere close to that.
The number
Yeah.
2 market cap company, Apple,
Mm-hmm.
has laid off nobody really.
Yeah. So this is a thing with Apple. I mean, they, when we came out of the pandemic and big tech started laying off, Apple was like, yeah, we don't really try to, they did do a hand, small amounts of layoffs at some point eventually, but, they act or operate a lot like a startup. They have small teams working on things that they're isolated from each other. They may, I don't know how many people they employ. Microsoft is, hundreds of, what is it now? 250,000 somewhere in there. It's a pretty big number, whatever it is. Apple has always run itself more leanly, if that makes sense. I mean, but I also feel like given all of the push with AI, given that I almost said invested, you spent $68 billion on Activision. You're going cross-platform. I mean, it seems like this is the time to spend. Like this is when you actually, let's plow this success that we're seeing in this momentum as opportunity, momentum, success, right? And actually invest in the business. This is like a holding pattern kind of an approach. It's actually worse. It's a scaling back. I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
The spin on this is that the company culture is not changing fast enough towards the focus on AI. And so they just keep smashing away at the company culture. Like that will make it better.
We're just going to hit this point though, where maybe you're some low-level programmer working on Microsoft Word, or you're in a game studio working on some open world game, or wherever. It doesn't matter where you are. And you're like, look, they come down and say, look, you said you were going to do this thing. It's not done yet. What's going on? And you're like, yeah, it turns out it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. It's going to take some more time. They're like, just AI it. It's like, yeah, but it's not, I think we're actually getting to the point where AI is just the answer now to everything, and again, they're being very careful not to say that. They very much don't want the messaging on this to be Microsoft lays off several thousand people because AI, right?
Right.
But they're also at this moment requiring everyone to use AI to make themselves more efficient. And one of the ways you can be more efficient is to have fewer people doing more things, I guess, with AI or whatever.
And so, yeah, I mean, you could argue that's the part of the argument is cut the teams back. So the only way they can still make their milestones is to utilize AI.
Yeah. Right.
I got to tell you, I've been working with some folks these past couple of weeks where I have literally watched them in a day do a 6-week sprint.
Yeah.
Like
And
just deliver that much code
because of AI.
because they're able to use the tools at a level I've never seen before. And it's just literally as fast as we can write the specifications, they're spitting the code out.
This suggests a belief that this stuff is better / more accurate than it really is. And this is I think today is the problem with AI. Not that it's never going to get there, but just that if you start to see good results and then you drop your defenses and stop challenging it.
Yeah.
And you just accept what it does. And that's when it's going to bite you in the butt.
Well, and it's absolutely part of the problem is that Unique's a very skilled person. And I've been working with a few of them to keep the tools in line and to get the results that you need.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that particular skilled person is working at a staggering rate. We talked about 20-30% performance benefits with GitHub Copilot a couple of years ago.
Right.
And today it's 100-fold. It's just so stunningly fast.
This falls into that category of I'm just resisting, and I can't explain why. Like I literally have no good excuse.
But I'll also
But
say it's a very known problem that they're working on. It's very much a forms over data problem. It's a
yeah,
lot of rote work, and the tools can pull it off. And by the way, these are not necessarily Microsoft centric tools. These are these are a variety of tools, but it is
yeah.
possible, and
It's
for the
all
right operator.
for whatever it's worth. This is also not just Microsoft, right? Google is
Yeah,
doing this exact same thing. Apple is talking themselves into doing this thing. I mean,
yeah.
they've been moving kind of slow. Amazon is a little more opaque. It's hard to say, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were also moving down this path. I mean, it's just it's a hard thing because if you looked at this business and said, "Look, we're just throwing money away. We've got all these employees and all their benefits and all their whatever it is, and
hmm
they're not being super efficient. And if we just automated some of this stuff, we could be more successful." And it's like I could see that, but they are the most successful company on earth.
Already, yeah,
Yeah, it's just what makes this kind of bizarre. It's very strange.
yeah, it is.
Oh well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, for example, like Perfect Dark Zero. So instead of canceling the game, you know, do you cut the studio in half and say you can do this with AI now, and you can do it in half the time? So prove me wrong, you know.
Yeah,
But no, they in this case they just got rid of it, and so there's more going on there that we don't know about, obviously. But it's yeah. I think the big problem here is just the unknowns. You know, it's just like I keep saying, I like to be able to say, well, I know it sounds off, but this is why, you know. And in this case, it's like I know it sounds off, and that's the end of that sentence. It sounds
hmm
off. Like I just don't. I'm having a hard time understanding. Maybe they're using Chat GPT 5 and it's working great. I have no idea. I don't know.
yeah. I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't- yes.
I feel for the folks, and
Yep.
I see, you know, at the same. I'm looking through LinkedIn to see the wave of it's me, it's me, it's me. But I'm also seeing
Right.
a lot of folks from May saying happy to now be at, and you know, they're moving around.
Mhm.
Didn't they promise when the FTC that the acquisition of Activision wouldn't result in a bunch of layoffs? I think they
No.
said that. They didn't
No,
say
they
that.
didn't. The FTC claimed that this was part of the agreement, which it wasn't. And at the
Oh.
time, look, you're integrating a gigantic business that has overlap with your existing business. Obviously, there are going to be
There's going to be redundancies.
there's going to be redundancies. Like this was, yeah. So, yeah, at that time, whenever that was, probably a year ago, December, something like that, I was like, so the FTC is telling Microsoft they're not allowed to lay off anybody now. It's like there's never been a corporate acquisition of this scope, probably period, but there's never been a corporate acquisition like this where there weren't layoffs because of redundancies. There have to be, right? I mean, that's understand like that to me that was like a year and a half ago. Like that was understandable. Now we're at the point where it's like, guys, like it's mostly going great. It seems like I don't understand what's happening here.
Were there people laid off from Blizzard Activision? The
Yes.
King people, right?
Yep. That's what we know about so far. But also, like I said, Raven is part of Activision Blizzard, is part of this. Yep. So we're gonna know more. I mean, even the Phil Spencer email mentions in the days ahead, they're gonna learn more internally, and then we're gonna learn more externally too, right? So we'll see how it goes. I don't know, but yeah, I wouldn't want to be working on Xbox hardware right now personally, but I do think they're the biggest game publisher in the world right now, actually, right? I mean,
Mhm.
that part of the business is actually doing great. And so, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a future there. It's just that, it's not the business that Microsoft started, 25 years ago. And it's certainly not the console centric business that a lot of fans still seem to kind of pine for. But I feel like that dream is over, like that ship sailed. How else could I say that? Uh, we've moved past that, I guess.
I guess, by the way, NVIDIA is now the #1 market cap. It's a race between Microsoft,
Changes
NVIDIA,
every
and
day.
Apple.
Yeah.
Any,
It goes
any
back and
day,
forth.
pick them. Yeah. Just for completeness. I do remember Microsoft saying that the acquisition Blizzard would be a vertical acquisition of tenants, and so they wouldn't have redundancies. But
Okay. Well, I don't.
that was
I don't
their
remember.
assertion at the
I wrote
trial.
about this at great length at the time, but I could go back and just
I
look it
think
up
it's
if you want.
often,
I
in fact, almost universally the case that during these trials, companies say, "Oh no, Your Honor, we're not going to lay anybody off," and then as soon as it's over,
Well, and it's also normal, really, not to do that for the first year anyway. While you just
takes a
figure out
while.
what
You got to
you've
figure
got,
out,
right?
Yeah, what do we need?
guess.
What do we?
Yeah, right.
Now they're saying, well, Blizzard was going to lay those people off anyway, so it's all part of the plan.
By the way, at that time, what the FTC was complaining about was an elimination of 1,900 jobs, which today we might refer to as the good old days.
Yeah.
So Microsoft structured the Activision Blizzard deal as a vertical acquisition only to meet the needs of antitrust, where if it got rolled back, it would be easier to roll it back. But they didn't actually promise not to lay anyone off. No, you couldn't make that kind of a promise.
No, should you? It would be fiscally,
you couldn't. I mean, you just couldn't.
Yeah, you're a public company. You can't say stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's not a thing.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's not only gaming, right? There are other parts of the company, but I also think a bunch of that's a hangover from May.
Yeah.
But I'm also hearing it's the beginning of the new fiscal year. This is it. That this is the last of it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this now because I don't remember things like this. But when Microsoft acquired Activision Blizzard, its cost of operations in gaming went up by 38%. Just running that business just added dramatically to their costs
Without adding significantly to the revenue.
Well, no, it did add to the revenues. I mean, I again, this is one of those things I don't remember. I did the math on this before the acquisition, and then it's kind of shown up. There was a period of time, remember, when Microsoft would call out the Activision Blizzard impact on their earnings specifically,
right.
And it was obviously big for for more personal computing, which is part of where it's located in the business. But for Microsoft overall, like revenue wise, no, it wasn't that. It was single digit percentage difference. But for more personal computing and for Xbox especially, it was big. And more importantly, it was profitable, right? That part of it, without the cost of, but that's the operating cost rise 38% that's redundancies, right? I mean, mostly.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Let's take a little break so we can all mourn in style, and then we can talk about other things.
Happier things.
Happier things. You're watching Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. This episode of Windows Weekly brought to you by US Cloud, the #1 Microsoft Unified Support replacement. You might be saying, why would I want to replace Microsoft Unified Support? Well, how about saving 30 to 50%? With, by the way, better support. We've been talking for a few months now about US Cloud. I think I made the point. They are the global leader in third-party Microsoft support for enterprises. 50 of the Fortune 500 have already switched to US Cloud because of that 30 to 50% savings over Microsoft Unified and Premier support. Maybe also, though, because US Cloud is twice as fast in average time to resolution versus Microsoft. Maybe that's another reason. Better response, faster response, lower cost. There's no negatives. Plus, US Cloud will help you save money on Microsoft products in other ways. For instance, US Cloud is excited to tell you about their new Azure cost optimization services. Now, let's face it, if you use Azure, it's really easy to kind of have some Azure creep, a little Azure sprawl, get a few more VMs and spin up a few more instances. And before you know it, you're a little bit out of control. But there's some good news. Saving on Azure is easier than you think with US Cloud. US Cloud offers an 8-week Azure engagement. It's powered by VBox. It identifies key opportunities to reduce costs across your entire Azure environment. And you're not going it alone. You're getting the expert guidance of US Cloud's senior engineers. It's another reason US Cloud's better. An average of over 16 years with Microsoft products. Now, at the end of the 8-week engagement, your interactive dashboard will identify rebuild and downscale opportunities and even unused resources, allowing you to reallocate those precious IT dollars towards needed resources. I got an idea. How about keeping the savings going by signing up for US Cloud with those Azure savings? Completely eliminate your unified spend and save every single month. Sam, who is a technical operations manager at Bede Gaming, B-E-D-E Gaming, is a very happy user of US Cloud. He said Bede gives US Cloud 5 stars. Here's the quote. We found, this is about the Azure engagement. We found some things that have been running for 3 years, which no one was checking. These VMs were, 10 grand a month. Not a massive chunk in the grand scheme of how much we spend on Azure. Wow, it must be a lot. But once we got $40,000 to $50,000 a month, it really starts to add up. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's simple. Stop overpaying for Azure. Identify and eliminate Azure creep and boost your performance, all in 8 weeks with US Cloud. Visit uscloud.com. Book a call today. Find out how much your team can save. That's uscloud.com to book a call today and get faster Microsoft support for less. US Cloud. Windows Weekly continues. Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell. Are we calling it Windows 11.5?
No, I just did a hands-on Windows episode about that, and sadly now they've actually announced the real name. So, oh well. But
it's just a number. What is it?
Yeah,
it doesn't really matter, I guess.
Yeah, it's even less than a number, as you'll soon discover. But so the next version of Windows will be Windows 11 version 25H2.
Yay!
Woo, we have a name.
Yeah.
But it makes sense that it appeared in July. Now that
white smoke is coming out over the buildings in Redmond.
I feel like this could have been communicated back in March when they switched the dev channel over to the new build stream and blah, 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 whatever. But okay, that's fine. It's water under the bridge. I don't know why I keep saying stuff like that. It is what it is. So it's not going to be Windows 12. That will be next year at the earliest now, it seems. And how do I best say this? So 24H2 was a big update. Like it was a feature update, obviously, but it was a major release, new foundation, compatibility issues, et cetera, et cetera. This one is going to be an enablement package. They are going to keep 24 and 25H2 aligned feature-wise, which, they've been doing for the past couple of years, ever since they brought Copilot into Windows 11. And that kind of makes sense too, because we see dev and beta channels both being updated with the same exact features all the time. And 24H2 is on beta channel now. 25H2 is on dev. So that does make sense. So come October, whenever this is officially released, it will be quick and easy. You're going to feel a small brick, and then you have to reboot. And then you'll be on 25H2. So this is just the difference between features being automatically enabled by default, which they will be on 25H2, and then them rolling out over time on 24H2 through CFR. And then as we go forward from there, every month, everything will be on a CFR, meaning features will roll out to both, and we'll see how that goes. It's going to be different on every computer because we don't like certainty, apparently. So there you go. I think that's everything there, but I'm just kind of happy it finally happened. Like I don't know what took so long, but here we are.
Yeah, I wonder if they were literally waiting for a July 1. Like that was a thing for them.
Yeah, right. Why not just, what's the big deal?
We know that date's coming.
Yeah.
It's not sneaking up on us.
If you look at the support life cycle for Windows these days, which is a pamphlet, it's not very long. There's 2 years of support for the consumer versions, like so Home Pro basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 years for enterprise, and then I guess if you use Pro with an enterprise agreement, and that explains why 22H2 is still being kind of supported with most of the same features we see on 23 and 24H2. That will go out of support in October, I guess technically November. So as of this, once October goes by, we will have 23, 24, and 25H2, and that's kind of the world. But for consumers, it's basically going to be 25, 24, right? And then they'll be kept up to date with each other. So it kind of doesn't matter which version you're on, especially once you get past 24H2, because that has the big foundational change, which they still, by the way, have not really discussed a lot. But
Well, and I think you and I both agree that 24H2 is effectively Windows 12.
yes,
It's an
that's
OS
right.
change. It's huge.
Yep,
And
it is. That's right.
I've got interviews where they basically admit that, like,
Yep.
it's just a huge change.
That is the only thing in the Windows 11 timeframe that has been consistent with the past, which is that Microsoft has never done that well. So you have things like Windows 3.1 was a humongous update, you know, and or Windows 2000 was
XP2.
Yeah, exactly, humongous update. And then you just have these things that are presented like, it's just Windows 11, it's fine, don't worry about it. And then for the next 6-8 months, we have all these problems, because actually there were compatibility issues and there were blockers. And I think as of today, I think I'd have to go look, but if I go look at Microsoft Learn, it probably will tell me that they are past almost everything as far as compatibility issues. So should be good to go. 24H2 was also unique because they did an initial release, remember, for Snapdragon mid-year last year. And then it was still in the insider program for, x64 computers and didn't ship broadly for everybody until whatever that was, October probably. So that's not going to happen, I guess, this year. 25H2 is, functionally, I think is kind of a big deal. We've been talking about this every month. Like, it seems like there's a lot of new features. But you'll get those in 24H2 as well. So it doesn't really matter. But that's the other thing that's kind of weird. This is true in Windows 10 as well. But, when we're doing multiple versions of the same OS, essentially, when you have those minor versions that aren't an underlying code change and have no compatibility issues, you would think instantaneous upgrade for everybody. Like if you're on 24H2, you're just going to get 25H2. And I bet that doesn't happen, only because it has never happened in the past. And I can't explain that, but I don't know. Maybe part of it is just people who got the upgrade and then added some peripheral or, whatever it is, external hard drive or something that maybe has some minor blocker on it and it works fine, but it's not going to let you go to 25H2 for that reason, something like that. But for the most part, you should just get it.
Yeah. Well, and now the other thing is people are just jumpy because 24H2 was so big.
Right.
And kept twitching around. It's like, I would be hesitant now because you just don't. What kind of H2 is this one?
Yes. This is the minor one. This is what you want to hear. You want to hear enablement package. It's like reboot, a bit flips, and you have
no biggie. No search boxes change shape. Stuff doesn't move around on your screen.
One of the weird things I've noticed in the dev channel, which this computer is actually on, is they did change the shape of a search box.
No.
It's funny. It's funny you say that. So in the settings app, I think on stable, there's a search box that's in that left rail, like the navigation pane. It's small. It's probably just a normal, rectangle, but with slightly rounded corners. But now it's on the top of the window in the middle, and it's got exaggerated rounded corners, and it just looks terrible. It's terrible looking. It's really bad. Like, it's bad enough I don't even understand why they shipped it, but it's not. It's on
the dev channel.
It's
where things are supposed to be a little ugly.
It's terrible. It's really bad. Like, it's just. But yeah,
unfinished.
Anyway, yes, it is. Okay. So all right. So now we know what we're doing finally. And so,
or at least we know what it's called. I don't know that we know what we're doing, but we know what it's called.
Okay, that's fair. I didn't say this explicitly last week because honestly, I was a little confused by this. But if you look at the calendar, last Tuesday was week D. The day it was the Tuesday of week D. That is when we should have gotten preview updates for Windows. Right. If you go back over the past year and a half, you will see things like the latest or the newest version, I guess, or whatever it is, often would not get it that day. It would come a day to 3 days later in the week. Like that happened a bunch of times. But that Tuesday came and went without any updates for Windows 11, or for Windows, I should say. In the Insider program, I'm sorry, no, in the any preview updates for Windows 11 or just Windows broadly, there were no preview updates. So when I was putting together the show notes, I was looking at the calendar, and I always doubt myself. I'm like, wait, wasn't this week D? So last week was week D, and that day came and went without an update.
Nothing.
But then we did the show Wednesday, and then on Thursday, they did release optional preview cumulative updates for Windows 11 24H2, and then another one for 23 and 22H2.
I thought
Again-
22H2 was out of support, Paul. Why are they doing updates to 22H2?
Because it's supported for enterprise. I honestly, the features that are new on 23 and 23H2 are not going to be enabled by default. And if you're in a business, you probably can leave them disabled. That you could probably specifically configure it so you'll never see these things. But they like to spread the wealth. So
Well, and honestly, other than security updates at this point, because you're looking at October, you're all about replacing hardware and changing OSs, and you don't care about any of these things.
Right. I mean, it's not like any business has ever used an unsupported version of Windows.
Honestly.
Yeah. So what this means, though, is that we now have an early peek, a slightly less early peek at the Patch Tuesday update that we're going to see. I got to look at the calendar. I'm so bad at this because we're in July now. Yes. So next Tuesday, July 8th, is Patch Tuesday, right? Second Tuesday in the month. So looking at this, honestly, nothing major. So last couple of months, major. This one is not too bad. And I've already talked about a bunch of this stuff, although I'm losing track if it was here or the other podcast. But Ask Copilot has been added to Click to Do on a Copilot Plus PC. So when you Windows key plus click something and there's text and images, whatever, it gives you these actions you can do. Ask Copilot just puts that thing into Copilot, and then you can go from there. It's not particularly useful. Microsoft is updating the Windows Backup app, which right now is pretty lame. It doesn't do much, but is tied to that thing we were talking about earlier, where they want people to use this to migrate between PCs, and in the coming case, between Windows 10 and Windows 11, right? Kind of a big deal. So they're adding PC migration features to it. This release has the features that are in Windows Backup. It does not have the features that will be in Windows Setup, which is what you need to bring it back on the other side. So you can kind of get an early look at what they're doing, but you can't do anything with it yet, because when you go to reset, if you reset the computer, you won't see the other half of it, right? So I haven't seen that yet myself, but I'm kind of curious about this because this is going to be a big part of the Windows 10 to 11 migration story, at least for individuals. So it's important. And I don't remember when they did this, but Windows Backup was something they had added to Windows 11, whatever it was, a couple of years ago. They've improved it over time. It's still pretty lame. But then they added it to Windows 10, and everyone was like, well, why are you doing that? And this is why, right?
Yeah.
They're going to smooth that upgrade. Some taskbar stuff. The big one here, ironically, is sort of the return of small icons, right? This is something I would use broadly on my Windows 11 computers if I could, but it's not what I want. So in Windows 10, and I guess in previous versions of Windows, you could go in and say, I want to use small icons. It would make the taskbar smaller, right? Kind of a low profile taskbar. But if you enable that option, which is show smaller taskbar buttons, if you just turn it on, it makes the icon smaller, but it keeps the taskbar the same size. Guys, come on. Like, what are you doing? So it's not what I want, but okay, well, we're getting there, and there are actually registry hacks you can do. I think third-party utilities that will give you actual small icon, like small taskbar.
Right.
But that is not, it's not there. And then just beyond that, just, narrator improvements, settings improvements, Windows Share gets updated every 2 weeks from what I can tell. So this is the one where they show you the preview of linked web content, like they show you a preview of images as well. And then you get those compression choices for images. And I was talking about how it's like, I forget the wording, but it's like small, medium, large, basically. And like large compression or whatever it's called is actually awesome because it reduces the file size by at least 50%. And the image quality is pretty much perfect in most cases that I've seen. So it's kind of a nice option. But that's about it. So actually nothing major. We waited for it and then it was disappointing.
Yeah.
So typical Microsoft software.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. And then is that everything? Oh, no. Passkeys, right. So the build that Microsoft released where they were like, oh, by the way, this is 25H2, just to throw away. They also have those builds. So this is dev and beta, meaning this feature will come to 25 and 24H2, is integration with third-party passkeys. So right now, it's a terrible system. It doesn't work very well. But if you sign into Windows with a Microsoft account, it creates a passkey on your computer. And it's actually that passkey that does what I'm going to call pass-through authentication to things like Microsoft Edge or OneDrive or whatever. which is nice. It doesn't really, there's not much interaction with it, but if you had to interact with it, you would use Windows Hello to authenticate yourself. That's how that works. There are some passkey providers that use Windows Hello for authentication, like Chrome does this, for example. And what
this is
this
always
is,
the problem with passkeys now, right? It's like you don't know what's popping up to
Yeah.
take a passkey. Is
I-
it Windows? Is it
Yep.
your browser? Is it your password manager? Like it's
So-
a war.
it's worse than you're describing. And the
Mhm.
reason is it's also inconsistent within an individual passkey provider. So, for example, I use my password manager to save passkeys. So I'll bring up a new computer and I'll sign into Chrome, and it will say, and it just pops in, you want to use one of these passkeys? Yes, I do. And I click the Google account and I sign in. There's nothing else for me to do. Like, it just works. It's awesome.
Mhm.
Love it. But I'll go back to that computer later. Maybe I haven't used Chrome for a while. This just happened to me this morning. And I bring up Gmail. It's like, oh, you got to sign in again. You're like, cool. This is going to be 1 second. I have a passkey. It's like, you want to use a passkey? Oh yeah, I do. And it says, good. Here's how you can do it. You can use a phone. But you saved a passkey in my password manager. It's right there. It's in the browser I'm using right now. Nope. Got to use a phone. So it shows you a QR code. You bring up your phone, take a picture of it. You're like, okay, great. I guess now that took 30 seconds instead of 2 seconds. It still worked fine. I guess it will be good for a little while now. But yeah, this is a problem because passkeys are awesome. ... when they work and are consistent, right?
Yes.
So it is a problem. The passkey implementation that Microsoft has right now in Windows 11 is bare bones, to say the least. But the thing they're testing is you're coming to Windows with a password or passkey manager. It's going to be one password is the one they're testing with right now, but eventually all those companies, Dashlane, Bitwarden, Proton, whatever you're using will absolutely work.
I'm in Bitwarden. I'm waiting for Bitwarden.
I cannot wait to see this. Yeah. So this is actually very interesting. So this is, I guess it's how it works on mobile, right? When you're on a mobile device, you install an app for your password manager and you do passkey. You can do passkeys that way and all the other stuff like autofill, whatever. When you do it on a desktop system like Windows or a Mac or whatever, you typically install the desktop, the browser extension, and it works in the browser. Ideally, I mean, and most of these guys actually have a standalone app too. It's just that it's not always super useful. You don't really have to sign into standalone apps that much, although I guess you do sometimes. And so this will require you to have that app. So there's a beta version of the 1Password.
This is what you run into with your phone too, is when you have real apps on your phone, you need the standalone manager.
Right. And that's the thing that's a nicety on mobile that's not currently the case on Windows. And I guess with this, it will be. So cool. Right. It looks, I have a screenshot of it in settings. So I guess I was going to say it looks good, but actually it doesn't look like anything. So we'll see. But the goal here now is that, again, you're not going to have to use this too much, but maybe you install, a lot of apps do that kind of web authentication thing, right? So Visual Studio, you sign into GitHub, or Notion, you sign in on the web. Zoom does this. They sign on the web. You go through a web browser, even though it's a standalone app, and then it goes back to the app. And this will, I guess, just let you do it right there. And maybe there's a middleman attack there that I'm, not aware is possible that they're going to mediate or remediate, I guess, through this method. But this is one of those things that, like I said, we use this on mobile. It works great. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if it works great, but it's getting there. Like
it works.
I
guess, yeah, fair enough.
You've got multiple vendors, different suppliers. Like they've all got to try and figure out how to work and play well with each other.
It's because I don't think Microsoft itself supports passkeys, right? I mean, they do that
Windows
authenticator
does,
thing.
They do.
Windows does. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
No, but I mean, for logging into Microsoft.
No, they do.
They do.
Yeah.
So I don't have to use authenticator and click a number and all of that.
Right. So that's the more common way. It's that way is actually technically better because it will work anywhere.
Whereas, but you have to have Microsoft Authenticator, whereas I can use Bitwarden for my passkeys. By the way, that's a sponsor. I'm glad you use it.
Richard. We switched to Bitwarden because it's really good too.
Yeah, it's really good.
Right.
So if that way I have it everywhere.
Yeah, right. This was like I had written something about Windows security last week because of this Windows resiliency initiative. I don't know if we talked about this in a show. I don't think we did, but
It's between shows.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Windows that if you just kind of leave it alone and accept the defaults, it's probably for the best for you in a security kind of way. But there are a couple of features in Windows, like you actually do have to go in and manually um, enable. And some of it's privacy related, which is one of those things a lot of people would think Microsoft would not actually be good at, right? Low level security features you can enable in the Windows security app that actually require a small amount of anonymous data to go back and forth with the cloud, which, for it to work properly, perhaps, something like that. But with regards to like, password manager, use a third-party password manager, right? Passkey support, what do you use for that, right? So I use passkeys in my password manager, but I do also have 2FA authentication, and I use an authenticator app for that. I could use my password manager for that, but someone said, well, why don't you just use the same thing for both? And I'm like, that would be like storing the key to the vault in the vault. What do you mean? like the third part of that is there actually is a master password, which I hate that there is, but when I have to sign into my password manager, that username and password combo is not stored anywhere. That's in my brain.
It's in your head.
Has to be.
Yeah. And this system is why this works, from a security perspective.
And I also have a YubiKey, set of YubiKeys tied.
That would be the other way.
Even better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. A YubiKey, a hardware security key is, you might argue, is kind of the original implementation of, passkeys. It's also portable because you bring it with you, like it's portable with you in the sense that
you have more than one, because if you have one, you are doomed.
Doomed. Wow.
Yeah, you lose that one, you're really in a bad place.
Doomed. You're doomed.
That's an interesting idea for like an article or a discussion. It's like the things people do that they shouldn't do. So, for example, technically, if you use a pin on a computer or a phone, you should have a different pin on every single one of those. And I bet you almost
I use the same pin everywhere.
Nobody uses different pins, but that's
it's the last four of my social security number. Nobody knows that.
That's amazing. It's the same combination I have on my luggage.
Yeah.
The two guys are like, so yeah, I mean, I'm sorry.
Don't do that.
No, but
what you're saying.
But you just said something that was very similar to that, which is, look, I'm doing the best security I can do. I have a physical hardware security key.
Right.
Nice. Do you have like 2 or 3 of them? One in a vault? No, I just have one.
And you got to have at least 2.
No, but I mean, it's the same.
Two.
It's the same thing. Like it's the illusion of I'm doing the right thing, but actually,
you've created a new vulnerability.
Yeah.
I bought some. I don't think YubiKey does this, but I bought some other hardware keys, and they require you to buy 2. Google requires you to buy 2 because
there you go.
One's never enough. Because what if you lose it?
Yeah, but if you buy 2, the smart thing to do is put both of them on the same keychain. So
that way, perfect, right?
It's just common sense.
It always makes sense that way. Yeah. Actually, Steve, maybe I misunderstood, but you were saying don't put your one-time password in your password manager.
So
use a separate thing for that. Is that what you were saying? Or was that my?
Yeah. So I do. No, you're not hallucinating. I do use my password manager for passkeys. I do also have, because you're supposed to have multiple ways to authenticate, right? So I still use authenticator apps, and I actually use 2 because the
now you're doomed. By the way, that's bad.
Not for the same ones. I mean, for different accounts, right? So the Microsoft Authenticator app is actually best for Microsoft accounts. The way that thing works is pretty amazing, and it randomizes the way it authenticates you. So that sometimes you type in a code, sometimes you're agreeing to a number, sometimes you click on a whatever it is, but
click it have a choice of numbers. Yeah, they always move that
around. I like that. I think that's smart, but they do backup and not sync, right? And so one day when Microsoft does finally figure this out in a secure way that they can sync account data, I will just use Microsoft Authenticator, but I use Google for my other accounts because it syncs. And, if you think about that, like maybe your phone gets stolen or something, right?
No, the exercise for me is you dropped your phone in the ocean.
Now what do? You have to kind of step through this because I think most people maybe don't appreciate how important your phone number is and your phone, but your phone number to your personal security with regards to online accounts and all this stuff. It's astonishing how many things are tied to this. So eSIMs are wonderful for this. But you could, go to an Apple store, buy it, buy it online, whatever it is. You could get a phone, download an eSIM, be online, sync with your Google account, and have all of your 2FA codes within minutes. And like, to me, that is huge. It's huge. And I want it to be something that if I get hit by a bus, my wife and her kids could probably figure it out. I still need to make that, eventuality document or whatever we're calling it.
You have backed up your Microsoft Authenticator.
Yes. You should do that too. Yes. But
the question is, where did you put the recovery codes?
Well, I put it in my Microsoft account, Richard, obviously.
Obviously.
But okay, so I actually did. But the reason is that a Microsoft account is the only cloud service that I use that has that extra authenticated encrypted space that's good for this kind of thing.
Right.
I only have a few accounts in it. Every one of them has other methods for me to authenticate. It's just a little more tedious. So I'm actually not, look, if they take away my account, they take away my account.
No,
but
you need your recovery codes somewhere other than Authenticator, because
you
need those recovery codes when you're restoring Authenticator without the original source.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a this is part of my next book is going to be called 10, Go to 10. And I don't really have a good answer to that, but yes, all of these, I'm going to call them, what are they? Security solutions, whether it's like a 2FA app, like an Authenticator app, or a password manager, or whatever, has these different recovery methods, right?
Yes.
And some of them involve a recovery code. I just created a new Microsoft account for the book, and it gave me I'd never seen this before, but as part of the account creation, it actually gave me the recovery code. Yeah. It really wants you to use an existing account. This is something we talked about before, but if you come to Microsoft, you're like, look, I'm getting an Xbox or whatever. For some reason, I need a Microsoft account, but I already have this Google account or this Proton account or whatever the heck it is. Doesn't matter. Microsoft really wants you to use that account. They really, really want you to, because that's like a built-in recovery method right there. You already have this thing that's protected in various ways. But if you come to Microsoft and create a brand new account, now you have Outlook.com, whatever the account name you chose, and now you got to go through and secure that thing. Like, it's a multi-stage process. And they really, like, the first time you sign into a Windows computer with a new account like that, it's fine. Like, you do the thing, you authenticate, blah, 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 and then you reboot and you come back. It's like, nope, you got to do it again. Like, they really want you to secure this thing before you use it full time. It's a lot of work on their part. So it's better for them if you come to it with a good account. So I should ask you, Richard, since you asked the question, what do you do to use
store them in Bitwarden?
In Bitwarden. Oh, in Bitwarden. Okay.
And I don't secure Bitwarden with Authenticator. I secure it with the YubiKey.
Yes, there you
go. Smart.
Okay, I was going to ask
a good idea.
The security key has to be in there somewhere. Okay, that makes sense to me. So this is one of those.
You still have a master password, or no? Do you not have master password?
Yes, but then I also have the YubiKey.
Yeah.
So
does it require both?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
this
strong.
Most password managers now probably support a passwordless version of the account.
Yes, I've just never turned it on.
Yeah, and it's possible, depending on the solution, you might not be able to after the fact. You might actually have to start a new one to get there. I mean, there's some complexity to it, and
I'm not unhappy with the situation that I'm in right now. I feel like I have
all
me
of those
sensitive numbers and things are sitting in Bitwarden, and I can access Bitwarden with a redundant set of YubiKeys.
Yep. Yeah. So I use Proton Pass.
By the way, all of this is way more complicated than it needs to be. Like, it's only because I hang around with the Sammy Lehos and these kinds of serious security guys that they walk me through this, that I got to this place where it's like, okay, I get it.
That's important, because you have to know your threat model, right?
Yeah.
Steve, we've talked about this on Security Now when it came up. Should I store one-time passwords in my password manager, which is very convenient. Bitwarden will let you do that, and then it fills it in and it fills that in. And
I know why
the threat model is that, well, that's a mistake because it's a single point of failure.
Yeah.
But Steve's conclusion was, look, if Bitwarden is properly encrypting everything and they're secure and their vaults are secure, that's fine. And for somebody who doesn't have not a member of Congress or a social dissident or something, that's probably adequate.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's what you have to think is, well, it's maybe not perfect security, but is it adequate security? for your threat
it's
model.
always this balance between convenience and
Right.
like true security. And most people veer way too wildly to convenience. This is why people have no password on their phone or whatever.
Most
It's
people
like,
listening to this show might veer too far to the security
That's right.
side.
Yeah, no. So I'm trying. Right, to me, it's just a common sense thing. But Proton Pass only just this past week started adding the ability to add any item into the password manager. So I probably
Oh, I
will
love that.
I'll
That's
probably put my recovery codes in there now, but it wasn't
I
a
always
thing
did.
before.
Yeah. Recovery
for
codes
me.
are in there, passports in there, social security cards, numbers, all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, I would just say for now, look, any online account that's important, Microsoft account, Google, Apple, Amazon, whatever, secure it how you can, but there are going to, you need multiple ways to authenticate yourself. That's the end of that sentence. You just do. You have to, right? You can't, because if you lose one, you're not getting into the account. You have to have multiple ways. Right?
You have to have multiple.
As simple as like a backup email account where it can send an email, and then you get into there, and then you type in the code it sends you or whatever. Something. Because you got to have something. It can't just be the one thing.
No. But and it's the whole thing is like I think the passkeys ends up being the low friction approach that you'll use most of the time.
Oh God, it's
And
the best
then-
when it's there. Yeah.
Yeah, like the YubiKey approach is a pain in the ass. Not only do you have to have the physical piece of hardware, but the interfaces are terrible.
Yeah.
But it's that, I need to make this work. The low friction way isn't working for whatever reason. I know this will work.
Right. Yep. I think I described this earlier, but like I said, when I bring up a new computer, you just like install a browser, whatever it is, sign into Google for the first time, like usually by going to Gmail. I don't type anything. I'm just I'm signed in. I'm authenticated. It shows me I have 2 passkeys I can choose from. I click on the one I want and I'm in. That's it. I mean, this is like global entry for traveling. It's like everyone else is standing in line and you're like, "Lip," and you're done. It's wonderful. So yeah. Anyway, this is something that probably comes up more on mobile than it does on PC, but I do like that they're adding this, and maybe we'll see less reliance on the web for this kind of authentication, I guess, because you can I guess you could do it now. I don't know how you would. I mean, well, soon you just do it through 1Password or whatever you're using, right? Just have access to the thing you are using. It's better for, look, browser, password manager, whatever. You're better off using a third-party thing than the thing the platform maker makes. And this will enable that in Windows broadly, right? Because you'll be able to use it at the system level with Windows Hello, which is great.
We're going to make this poster for your office there. For best in security, always store your backup right with the original.
Yep.
Thank you, Paul. Actually, our club has come up with a couple of interesting tips. Out of Sync mentioned that, and I didn't know this, that if you needed the 1,000 Bing bucks for getting your security updates after October of this year, all you need to do is open the Outlook desktop app. Make sure you sign up for Bing Rewards points first, of course. And he says you get 1,000 points just for opening the Outlook desktop.
That's the real reason they're doing it, Leo. They want people to use the new Outlook. You just found out the reason.
We found out.
We knew it was something.
The other really good tip that I did not know about, and I thought I was a pretty good expert on Bitwarden, is that Bitwarden, and by the way, other password managers, I'll show you 1Passwords, have a page for like writing down this important security information.
Yes.
They have a editable PDF which you could store, somewhere and let your loved ones be aware of it and all that stuff. I think this is I just downloaded it. I'm going to put this up on put it on the wall so that burglars can see it.
The sort of emergency kit. The ready.
Yeah, I've renamed it in case of my death or dismemberment.
Yeah. It's like your go bag.
Yeah,
for
and it's just
security.
information
Your
for your
digital
loved
go bag.
ones so that they can, because they can get into your stuff if they need to. And I guess 1Password has something similar. I think that's a really good idea. So thank you. This is why you want to be a member of the club, because there's use. These people in here are great. Everybody's helping everybody out. It's like a giant user group because they all listen to you guys and they're inspired. That's what I'm. That's
or depressed, but yeah, either way, whatever.
Well, it could go either way. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever the influence is.
And here's the 1Password get to know your emergency kit. So 1Password has something similar.
Mhm.
Another of our. We have two
And
sponsors.
this is, by the way, this is an afternoon of work, right?
Yeah, it
It's
is.
on a Sunday. Sit down with this site, work through all the steps.
Yeah, put a
think
game
through the
on or whatever,
problem,
and just
make
this one of
notes
the
while
things.
you go,
Yep.
because you're going to need them later. This is because once you get it done, you're not going to think about it again, and you will forget.
Right.
Right.
Although probably good to kind of make a note to update it from time to time, just in case. Because one hopes you're changing your master passwords once in a while and things like
Once
that.
in a while.
Not too often.
No.
Yeah.
And then make sure you store it in that same place. You'll be fine. Just
Let's put it right
10
there with everything
10
else.
go to 10. You got
I like the name of your auto. 10 go to 10.
Yep.
You're watching Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell. Paul is one of the things Paul does to me is he forces me to change browsers on a regular basis. I don't know if that's for security or just because you like to drive me crazy. Yep. So what's new with Edge?
Yeah, I kind of struggling with this one because my gut tells me no one should ever use Edge ever.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. I appreciate
And
it.
by my
just
gut,
not
I mean,
that bad.
yeah, that's the thing. It actually isn't that bad, and like Google Chrome, it's doing all the tracking and stuff. And there is that in certification stuff in Windows where they drive you to use Edge if you're using another browser, and the likewise terrible thing where you are using Edge, but you're not using it the way Microsoft wants, and they keep prompting you to, maybe configure Bing as the default search or blah blah blah, whatever. Okay, but if you can get by that stuff, honestly, it is the browser that comes with the operating system, so it has these integrations that are really nice. I don't really find a use for it too much, but it does have the Copilot stuff built in if you want that kind of stuff. I like the look of it. To me, it's just kind of modern, and it's got that WinUI 3 kind of look to it. So I found myself using this browser a lot this year, and then hating myself and crying in the shower later. But it's whatever. So it's on the same release.
Yeah.
It's just it's a lot of back and forth. But it's on the same release schedule as Google Chrome, right? It's a Chromium-based browser. So the most recent release, which came out this past week, Edge 138, has several, I'm going to call them AI search-related features. The most important being this is on device, which is kind of interesting, where it actually uses natural language search now if you want to find something in history, right? So this is kind of like a low contact version of recall in a way, where you just kind of not talk to it, but you just describe what you're looking for rather than trying to remember the name of the site or something. And it will hopefully work well. I've not actually used this yet. And the other thing they're doing is integrating Copilot into the search box and into the new tab page, which, by the way, no one should ever use. The Edge new tab page is hot garbage. But so even if you're going to use this browser like an idiot, use a new tab replacement. Like I use something called Bonjour. Momentum is good, whatever. But okay,
Bonjour's
because
nice.
because the Microsoft page is just a black hole of Microsoft services. Terrible news stories from MSN.
You know what it reminds me of? It
tracking.
reminds me of the old newsstands on the streets of New York that were just tabloids. That's what.
Yeah. Okay. I was
Those
right. I was
were
gonna-
the days, baby,
Yeah.
man. I
like
love
the
that.
National Examiner. If that
Yeah.
was news, that
JFK
would
Jr. has alien baby.
yes,
you know.
Bat Boy. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's
That's
terrible.
what it looks like to me.
It's comically
and
bad.
then I turned on Bonjour and suddenly realized how much stress that default page was.
Right,
giving me.
exactly. I could just have the 7 or 8 links I need, and I'm done.
Yeah.
A beautiful photo every day sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And the weather and the time.
Mhm.
And just like
Exactly
thanks, thanks. You
Yep.
made me hate my machine less.
Right. Instead of turning it on and going, oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
The other problem is that stuff doesn't sync properly. Like not all the settings on that new tab page sync between machines. So you get confronted by the garbage every time you go to a different computer.
Yep.
Whereas if you configure Bonjour, you'll get a pop-up that says, hey, are you sure you want to use this as the new tab page? You're like, yeah, I am sure. And you'll never have to deal with it once.
It'll follow you.
Exactly. Like that's really important to me. But so it's going to be interesting to see this. Another thing I have started writing but haven't published is I'm thinking about web browsers and how they're about to change dramatically because of AI. And there are examples from the browser company like Arc and Dia that are don't want to say radical, but a rethinking of the browser, right? And then things like Opera Neon, which is another look. We make browsers. What does this mean for this AI? Or let's think this over. Whereas Google, Microsoft, Apple are taking a more conservative, subtle approach, right? So this is there's a sidebar for Copilot and Edge, which is whatever. It's easy to ignore. You can turn it off. It's that's good, right?
Mhm.
But there are these capabilities that you do get through Copilot, which are useful, and they want to integrate more of that into the browser itself, which does make sense. And maybe this becomes a reason to, or a reason not to, use Edge in the future. I guess we'll see. But they want to give you those kind of intelligence features, right in the browser. So we're starting to see that, and it's like, again, it's not in your face like maybe the browser company stuff is, not yet, but yeah, they're heading down that path, I guess is the way to think of it.
Mhm.
Nice.
So yeah.
So should I use it?
No.
No.
No. A lot of time, like it's like when you read it, like someone will review like a low end smartphone and they'll be like, "Oh, I would never use this piece of kit, but it's great for you."
Right.
No, this is the opposite. It's like, no, I'm using it, and honestly, it's fine. But I think I know what I'm doing, and you do too, right? But I mean, yeah. No, there's no reason. I don't do this.
You got me on Arc. You got me on Dia.
Just in time to have it taken away.
Yeah, I was sad.
I don't know. I don't.
Dia is not going to be my default browser. I got to tell you. It's just,
but once they add that sidebar thing back, right? And
it's Arc-like. Yeah, once it's Arc-like, yeah.
They have said they're doing that. So
they're going to put all the Arc looks and because I use Zen Browser, which is a Firefox.
That's right.
Arc clone.
It's identical. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I like it a lot. It's not 100% stable.
Yeah.
But it's pretty close. I mean, look at this. Doesn't
Firefox
this look
to me
like Arc?
is more resource usage, and it doesn't run as fast. But the UI of
Firefox
is
right?
Yeah, it's identical to Arc.
Yeah. It's got the workspaces, which I really actually like.
Yep. They need to figure out a way to onboard people into this and let them ignore it if they don't want it, because it's a little too disruptive.
Right.
And like one of the vestigial features from Arc that's in Dia that I hate, and I haven't figured out how to work around yet, is Control Tab goes to the last 4 or whatever tabs, not to the tabs in order. And that is not how browsers work. And that makes me crazy. And in Arc, there was a way, I can't remember how I did it, maybe in flags or something, to enable it.
I think it's a setting, actually.
It's got to be, but it's not there. Like, it's not in settings. Like I've looked, because there's a Dia has.
What do you want it to do?
I want it to go in order through the tabs as they appear.
As they are lined up. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a normal person. But it makes me crazy that it doesn't do that. But other than that, it's fine. I'm letting it learn about me. It's probably just going to come back and be like, look, it's not us. It's not you. It's us. We're just not, this isn't working out. They're going to say no to me, I think.
I think the thing about Dia that bugs me, although, I mean, I'm a big AI guy, as you know, I'm a proud AI user. It's so AI focused. I mean, it's like,
yeah. Well, but this is the bet that,
yeah.
I will say, when they first came out with Arc, they were talking about this notion that the browser is essentially an internet computer, that for many, many people, you do all or most of your work in the browser.
Bingo.
And this should be more sophisticated, yada, yada, yada. I was like, you know what? 100%. And then, Dia, they're trying not to be as disruptive with the UX, which I sort of appreciate, but they're thinking ahead to like, okay, AI is going to change everything. How can we use this to make your life
browsing
easier, more efficient, whatever?
Will be essentially an interaction with it at a chat box.
Maybe browsing doesn't happen anymore. Browsing might be one of those things that becomes a past task, that.
Well, that's kind of, I mean, I made Perplexity my search.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to go back to cocky, but, every search is an AI conversation now. And I can see the value of that. But a lot of times when I search, I just want
you want an answer and you want to be done. Exactly.
I just want to go to that page. I don't.
Yep. Yeah.
So there needs to be like two different kinds of searches.
Yeah, they need to be, or one that it knows what you're doing and gives you the right one, right? That's the intelligent answer to that. And that's why I think Google will eventually do fine in this world. But
Their
Yeah.
AI search summaries are awful on Google.
Yeah, they are. They're
still
unbelievably terrible. It's what's I don't know if I brought this up last week, but it's fascinating to me that now that we have AI AI chatbots, whatever that can code that everywhere, like it's everywhere. When you I Google questions about coding all the time,
Me
and it
too.
will actually give me the answer now in that AI summary
Yeah.
with code,
Yeah.
and it's like,
It's so cool. And it gives you a little cut and paste icon too. It's
Yep.
so great.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, there's a little like a middle finger to Stack Overflow in the corner. Like,
Yeah.
sorry
We
guys.
just took all this from.
Yeah, we just scraped it off your site, basically.
I every once in a while, just as a mental exercise, it's kind of like crossword puzzles for me. I do coding challenges, and this Advent of Codes thing, it's only in December, but I'm so slow. I'm
You're still plowing.
Yeah, I'm doing day 15 right now. So December 15. But I had a bug that was driving me crazy.
Right.
Just a little bug. And Darren Oki in our Discord, I'm mentioning it to them. They're kind of my mentors, Darren and Paul, and Darren said, "Well, just ask Claude Code what's wrong." I said, "It'll be interesting experiment to see if it can understand what you've done so far in Common Lisp, no less, not even a normal language, and figure out where you went wrong." And it did. He said, "Oh yeah, you just didn't load in all the input. There's 3 more lines."
So the next level version of that is you try to figure something out. You have a problem, whatever it is. It's like, this thing is not doing what I want it to do. Can you please fix it? Like, oh yeah, sure. And it's like, blah, change this, and this is why, and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, that's amazing. And then you run it, you're like, okay, so this doesn't work. So you go back and you're like, this thing that you just told me to use doesn't work. And they're like, yeah, sorry, we missed
that's it.
You have to initialize this here, and now it's going to work fine. And you're like, all right. And then
I've done that.
You're like, okay, it works. It's like sometimes you have to like berate it a little bit. Like,
Oh,
thanks
yeah,
for this
you're right.
piece
I'm
of
sorry.
junk method you gave me. And they're like, sorry about that.
I didn't let it edit the file. I just said, what's wrong here? And it said, you should put this code. This code would be better because you're missing some lines of code, lines of input. And I went, oh, you're right. So I just made the change myself. But because I have had an experience where it's taken my beautifully crafted code and put its own little imprimatur on it. And I don't like that.
A lot of times, like when you're writing a line of code, it's not, something isn't resolving. So you get a little squiggly thing, whatever it is. And you get the error message, in my case, from Visual Studio. Will say something like, whatever, it doesn't matter what the error, like this has to happen before this is going to work, something, whatever it is. And you're like, okay. So you're like, all right, Copilot, fix it. And then what it does is it just removes the line that had the offending code, which I put in because the thing wasn't working to begin with. And it's like, okay, you got rid of that problem, but I'm trying to solve.
It's a little superficial sometimes.
The problem. Yeah. Like it's a little too local.
It's being very literal. It's like, solve the problem. I took the line away. Problem resolved.
We're going to we are, if you're a developer, you are the canary in the AI coal mine. There's no doubt about it. Like we are, the things that these people are doing right now are a preview of what just basic productivity is going to be, or maybe is for some people.
It's not there yet. Exactly.
Yeah, it's getting there, but it's
bleeding edge.
This is what's happening. Like it's and it's going to be I had to write a 30,000 word essay on whatever for school, or God help you, a legal filing, and it's Monday morning at 8:30, and it has to be done. And yikes! And they're going to use it. They are.
Well, along those lines, I see now I can. I use Perplexity, I use Claude, I use ChatGPT. I pay for all of these things, but now I can use Copilot on my Mac.
Mm-hmm.
Do I pay for it? How do I get that? How do that work?
So there's already a Copilot app on the Mac that came out, I don't know, February, something like that, and it looks and works a lot like the Copilot app in Windows. I don't know why anyone would use that. But now there is a Microsoft 365 Copilot app, right? So this is the one you sign into with your work and school account, enter ID.
It's part of M365.
Yep. And that's actually, there are good reasons to use that. You're using it for work. So you use a Mac, you're using, work's paying for it, and you're using it for whatever reasons, like you're going to want that. So
in some ways, it's kind of shocked it's taken this long.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I guess
they charge $20 a month for.
You can go to the web, I guess. But yeah, in Windows, this is just built in. It's part of the OS now, right? And so back in the day, this was the Office app. It became the Microsoft 365 app. Now it's the Microsoft 365 Copilot app. But it has kind of front ends to the very, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc., with templates and blah, 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 whatever. But I think the bigger piece there, the integration piece is really, and recent documents and all that stuff, but is the chat stuff, right? The Copilot capabilities. So, yep, you can get that on the Mac.
All right.
If your Mac is not stable enough.
What do you use them all? I use them all.
I am humiliated to say again, I don't use AI almost at all, and it is not a strategy. It's not.
It's just what's
I
happening.
just don't find myself doing it. I mentioned this to
stuff into Perplexity all the time.
Yep, my wife uses it all the time. And I said this to her the other day, and she
So
goes, "I
it's
use it
basically
more now than I ever have."
It's taking her off the search engines entirely.
Yep.
That's what I'm finding is folks that get onto that path, and Perplexity especially,
Yeah.
they just never search again.
I obviously for images, yes. Okay. And that's something that it's a one-to-one replacement. Like I would go to Shutterstock or whatever those sites are to find an image, and those are fine, but they're also images that anyone can have, And one of the nice things about the AI imagery is that it's yours. Like it may look stylistically like other images, right? They all look the same, but you describe what you want. You get these sometimes crazy results back. One of them is like this inspired insanity. And you're like, yes, this, like that Halo picture with the Last Supper. What the frick was that?
So brilliant.
Awesome.
But have you played with FramePack yet?
I have not.
It's on GitHub and it's video diffusion. So you take your Midjourney image or however you're making your images, you feed it to FramePack and give it a set of instructions of what to do to make a 10-second video out of that. Just to add some animation or motion.
Yep. This is, results. So that type of thing is starting to become common, and people or companies or whatever are using it to take these old photos that might be black and white. And the big thing before, and we did this for my parents, for my wife's parents' anniversary a couple of years ago, was you take their wedding pictures were black and white.
Yep.
And take them and colorize them.
Yeah.
And nice. Like that stuff is really cool. It doesn't have that fake color like problem we've always had for a long time. But now you can also take them and turn them into short animated video.
You can tell it to do the sepia color too, if that's the look you want.
Yeah, no, you may be right. You may be looking for that, but it's kind of amazing. And so like there have been movies where like Ken Burns, remember, would pan through still images and do that Ken Burns effect, right? Where he's kind of give it some sense of animation.
Some sense of depth, yeah.
But there are documentary movies like I know like the guy, what's that guy's name? The guy from Weta that made the Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson made that World War I document.
Oh, that was so amazing.
Which is amazing.
My God, that was amazing.
And I think these things all kind of fall into the same general category where you have this content, maybe it's a still photo in this case, that maybe is old, maybe the corners turn off, or it's black and white or whatever it is. And not only can you make the thing look modern and beautiful, but now you can turn it into a video. And I got to tell you, like, if it's a loved one and they've passed maybe, and now you have this video of them kind of interacting with other people in it's like, oh my God, like this is, it's crazy, right? I mean, some of that stuff is really impressive.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's still clumsy to do, but we're just not that far away from being able to.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't done it yet, but I think the Google one, I think is called Veo or Veo.
Veo, yeah.
Veo, and I believe it does what we're describing.
It's mind-boggling.
And yep. I mean, this is look, that's going to replace browsing, right? I suppose you could sit there, you're sort of watching TV, but what you're really doing is browsing through Facebook or something. Now you could just go back and like animate old photos of maybe your grandparents or someone who has passed on by now or whatever it is, and
we'll have
incredible.
We'll have virtual people all over our lives.
Yes.
Soon.
That's
like
right.
In the next few years.
Yep. Yeah. Like if you're a little too excited about how well things are going on in life, you'll have like a Paul AI thing that will make you depressed and bring you back down.
It could be better.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, you're pretty good, but this other guy's doing even better than you are. So I don't know.
You really suck,
Microsoft's doing pretty good, but NVIDIA 3.8, I mean, I'm just saying, They don't give out silver medals for second place. Oh wait, yes they do. Anyway, yeah, this is it's astonishing. It really is astonishing. And there's still people who are like, it's not real, it's a scam. It's like, okay, but look at this thing.
Yeah, it's getting hard. I'll tell you what, it's getting hard to. It used to be you could always, that's video, AI. It's getting really hard,
right? Because 15 minutes has gone by. This is not like. This is remember when Jurassic Park came out and it was like, holy crap, like that looks real, like that. And my takeaway from Jurassic Park was they can now make anything on film. Like they've done this. They can do
that's
anything.
over.
But if you go back and watch Jurassic Park today, it still looks great, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that's amazing about that. You would think something like that would start looking dated somehow. And I feel like AI is like that. It's like all of a sudden it just happens like it's on.
If you want a real flashback on that, go watch the Canadian PSA House Hippo video on YouTube.
What?
House Hippo? Is it all AI generated?
No, because it's from the 1990s. It is a hand visual effect.
Oh boy.
Okay.
They made.
Yeah, let's find this.
All right, and this is about a hippo.
In a kitchen just like yours.
Is this it?
All is
Yeah.
quiet.
There's a cat in a kitchen, but here comes the house hippo. It's the size of a mouse.
So is this wasn't stop animation?
Hippos are very timid creatures, and they rarely
It's digital. It's editing.
but they will
Okay,
defend their
so it's like a Jurassic Park style special effect, except in reverse, light size wise.
I want a house hippo. Where can I get one of them?
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah,
this is
I'd be
one of
okay
the
with
best
that.
PSAs ever. Because this was a talk about deceptive television, right?
To teach you.
Yeah, it was a public service announcement. PSA.
Good old Canada.
I think you'd probably snap your finger off though. You got to be careful around hippos.
What you've seen their teeth? They look like they're like logs.
That thing has like
They're
a
lethal,
like
yeah.
the tensile strength of like
that's a good
100
point.
crocodiles. I mean,
Yeah. So
things-
don't. They're saying here, don't believe the house hippo when you see it.
Yeah. Although if I did
It's anti-children's advertising. Oh, that's
you
cool.
see a little shadow running around in the kitchen. It's probably a rat, not a house hippo. But
But I love about that one is it looks good. And
Yeah,
it's
it
none
does
of
look
that
good.
technology.
It looks
None of
real.
that technology.
no, but that's what right now on your iPhone you could make that video. Like,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's what's
Oh, that's easy.
yeah, it's unbelievable.
Here is more VO video. These look as real as can be.
Yeah.
Except you could tell his T-shirt is.
Yeah, is right. I love that. That's the mistake. It still
Yeah.
has like the misspelling of words.
Oh, actually, that's the name of the website. But these, they're talking. They're
We
acting.
can make realistic video. We can't do integer math.
Yeah,
But
right.
this, no.
How many
problem.
R's of strawberries? I have no idea. But
I don't even know what a strawberry is. But
you know what? It strikes me that because this is a good example of that it ingested so much influencer video
Right.
that it's really good at this.
Thus ensuring that this will be entertainment for the rest of our lives.
Right.
Idiot who
Fake
knows
news.
nothing in some place talking to
Vibes are
someone.
immaculate.
Do you ever give to the poor? I gave my slave a compliment once. She cried. You're welcome.
Would you let your daughter
Wow.
date a gladiator?
I wouldn't let her date a Greek.
Oh my God.
This is ancient Rome.
It's my last day.
Influencer
Any
interviewing
advice for
people in
future
ancient
leaders,
Rome.
Caesar?
That's good.
Be humble, but also name a whole month after yourself.
That's awesome.
Unbelievable what they're doing. I swear to God.
That's
It's
awesome.
amazing. That's
really
also
is.
impeccable, which is, I guess, a YouTube channel.
Okay.
Here's Joanna Stern of Wall Street at the Wall Street Journal turning herself into a Dr. Chip motherboard robot designer.
The film you're about to see, including Chip and all the other visuals.
This is all made up, but this is inserted into live action, which is kind of like the hippo.
It's impressive.
So it's kind of amazing. Anyway, yep, we're living fun times. That's why we changed the show right after this show from This Week in Google, which was getting pretty dull, to be honest,
Yep.
to Intelligent Machines.
So
which
if I
is-
hear you correctly, you're suggesting that this should be Microsoft 365 Copilot Weekly.
it could be. No. Nah.
I mean, I'm not saying I would do harm to myself, but
No.
I am
nah.
saying I'm not super interested in that. Yeah.
You saw that Apple, well, this is a rumor from Mark Gurman at Bloomberg. He's usually pretty good, that Apple's talking to, I don't think they're talking to Microsoft, but they're talking to OpenAI and Claude. Saying, and this Siri thing is not working
Perplexity. I mean, they basically...
Yeah, or might buy
buying,
Perplexity.
yeah, exactly.
I don't want them to because I love Perplexity.
I know. When you were talking about Perplexity, I almost said, so what are you going to do if Apple buys them? But, I mean...
I'll be devastated.
I know. Well, look, whatever they do, but obviously, according to Mark Gurman, I mean, they're moving forward with their in-house work on models. They apparently made an offer to Anthropic, and they came back asking so much money and wanted it on like an ongoing basis, which is so against the Apple way of doing things.
Right.
That they were like, ugh, this is no way. So they went to OpenAI, and OpenAI is an interesting option only because of the Microsoft angle to me. Like this is a way to play another gigantus company off Microsoft and maybe help facilitate that inevitable breakup, But I don't know, this is just talk until it happens, I guess. So I feel like at some point in the next whatever number of months, we're going to hear something about Apple actually going in this direction, right? I think they want to get this stuff going.
It's kind of an acknowledgement that they've failed with Siri. They failed to make Siri into the chatbot.
So I would say it's a deeper failure than that in a way, because what they've really failed doing is creating these models in-house that they, their model of doing everything in-house, so to speak, has paid off big time for them. And this is one case where they might have to go with a third party to realize the dream they had for this product, right? And I guess that's part of it, because they've at least with the Anthropic cloud stuff, and I would assume also ChatGPT, but they've asked that company Anthropic to create a special version of it that will run on their private cloud compute that they run themselves.
So that way they keep it private. You're not
yes, and specifically tailored for the tasks that they want Siri to be good at, which has to be more than is it raining and or tell me a joke or whatever stupidity. Siri
is this analog to what Microsoft did? I mean, Copilot. Microsoft has its own models, but Copilot's OpenAI, right?
Yeah. So Copilot, I mean, look, actually the truth is we don't know what the mix is right now, but yes, certainly at the beginning when it was Bing AI and then the beginning of Copilot, the way Microsoft described it was OpenAI models and capabilities and then their secret sauce, which is gross, but is like the secret sauce you get on a Big Mac, I guess. It's orange and weird looking and it tastes vaguely pickly, but it was basically
mayo, ketchup, pickles.
But they were doing whatever tailoring of the prompts, but also using Bing search on the back end for the search results, which you need, but also it's Bing. So you might have made the argument that I don't know, maybe the ChatGPT version of whatever the services we're talking about at the time might be better because it's not using Bing on the back end or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, Microsoft since then has, jump started their own internal Microsoft AI group with Mustafa Suleiman and those guys. They brought in that guy that used to run, I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, he was at Build.
John Giandrea.
Yeah. No, this is at no, the Microsoft guy, the guy who I think he used to run the infrastructure at Meta.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I can't remember his name, but yeah, there were rumors some months ago that Microsoft's models were allegedly there, but I've heard since they're not even close, and we'll see. But yeah, I mean, the goal is to wean themselves off of that stuff as much as possible, right?
In my mind, and we'll talk about it later on Intelligent Machines. So Meta's doing something similar too. Meta had its own LLM Llama.
Yeah.
But now Mark Zuckerberg is going out and spending money, trying chiefly to acquire, like the top 12 guys,
exactly,
mostly from OpenAI, to start a whole new division called Superintelligence. It almost feels to me like these big companies thought it would be easy to make their own AIs.
Sure.
And in fact, Anthropic, OpenAI, and maybe to some lesser degree Google kind of have a lock on it.
Yep.
So they have to go to these other people, these third parties. They don't want to.
We keep ragging on Apple, but I do think there's a version of this where, they partner with someone, and maybe that looks bad for 2 seconds. But the truth is, if they run this thing through private cloud compute,
I would do it.
Tailored it to some degree,
Yeah,
for their specific workloads. It's going to be fantastic.
I would immediately do it.
And yep. And I think today, I'd be interested to see what the numbers are on this. I bet Apple doesn't want to talk about it, but Apple Intelligence is on whatever number of devices. You can optionally go in and sign into ChatGPT. You don't have to pay for it, but if you do, you get whatever benefits you get through that. And I bet a lot of people do it because it's better. It's just better. I mean, in the same way that we all use Google Maps, knowing they're tracking every single moment or direction we take. And now we suspect, and almost certainly are correct, that it is taking us in directions that are better for traffic, not better for us. Like we just drove back to and from Boston, and at some point I was like, "What's this leaf thing on the screen?" And my wife's like, "Oh, you're taking the most, gas friendly way." And I'm like, "I want to take the fastest way. If I could fly to this place."
It's so ridiculous.
Like, screw that. And I turned that thing off, and then it was, your travel time went down by 20 minutes. I'm like, seriously. But there'll be these things. Oh, you can save some time if you take the side road. You can do this. And like in the past, it seemed kind of crazy, but it usually worked. And these days, at least on this trip, it kept going back up to the original time. And it was like, I think they're just directing traffic to smooth traffic. I don't think this is for me anymore. I think this is for the general good. And I got to tell you, I don't care about the general good. I want the best thing for me.
This is the tragedy of the commons. It all came down to a leaf.
Yeah, screw everyone else, man. I just want to get there. If I could fly over them and blast them with the exhaust from my jet on the way by.
Paul Thurrott is rolling coal, ladies and gentlemen.
Nice.
Just want to get there. Just, comments. I don't know. Oh well. Yeah.
Grammarly. Look at Grammarly. They're an advertiser, or we're an advertiser. They acquired another advertiser, Coda.
Right. That was a weird one, because if you are familiar with that deal back in December, they acquired that company, but it was really a merger, and the CEO of Coda became the CEO of Grammarly, as announced by the now former CEO of Grammarly, who apparently was okay with that. And they said this at the time, but they were like, we have bigger aspirations than being like, spell checking, grammar checking, etc.
They're kind of smart, right? I mean, in this age of AI.
Yeah, they're going to get steamrolled. I mean, that capability, which good, bad, and different, whatever anyone thinks of Grammarly, whatever, but it's going to be built into everything. You on your Apple phone, Messages has Write tools built in, Windows has built. Yeah, everyone's going to have this. So that specific feature, not necessary. But now they talked about and then did get some billion in funding back in whatever that was, May maybe, with an eye toward further acquisitions. And then they just purchased a company called Superhuman, which I've never heard of, but they make a very expensive, by the way, email solution, which is all, AI native is the term that they use. And now they're talking about, we're going to go for the whole AI native suite, productivity suite.
Oh, that's interesting.
So this is not necessarily unique. In some ways, Notion is doing something like this. You could argue that Proton is kind of doing something like this. They don't all 100% overlap yet, but they're all kind of, and
this is an existential threat. What's happening with AI is going to destroy Grammarly if they don't do something.
That's right.
Just jumping on the
That's
bandwagon.
exactly right. Yep. That's exactly right. They're doing what they should be doing, because otherwise they would disappear.
They would just disappear. Yeah.
That's right.
And but arguably putting Coda in charge, the Coda CEO in charge, is like, we need to be an AI company.
They looked at those guys and said, look,
here's a whole bunch of customers, right?
Yeah. They need more funding. They need more resources, whatever it might be. And we can realize this vision or whatever.
But it's a high risk play, but it's a high risk play because this or you die.
So if you think, I don't know what the year was, but whenever Google came out with what is now called the Google Workspace, it was huge because they were taking on Microsoft. It was monolithic, super successful office business, humongous with the Fortune 500 especially, but just with everyone really. And Google Workspace saw and still sees, I think, some success with what I'll call startups and very small businesses.
Yeah.
And then I'm sorry.
2020.
Well, no, but the
G Suite before that.
G Suite, and yeah, I mean, it probably goes back at least 10 more years from there. I don't remember exactly, but the point was to provide kind of a low cost web centric, as Google would do, take on office productivity that was really big on email, calendar, but also had the docs and spreadsheet and all that stuff. And okay, like that, whatever. Obviously, pieces of that are very successful. It's worked out pretty well. But this stuff, like this is interesting to me. Like Notion, which I think of as like the everything app, buys buys a calendar company, and then buys an email company, and it's like, wait a minute, what's happening here? And then Grammarly, which is almost left field because literally spell checking and grammar checking, buys Coda and then buys Superhuman, and is now talking about an AI native productivity suite that will take all of those things on, right? And that's really interesting. And so, Notion, Grammarly, Proton, et cetera, what I think of as little tech, and then we get big tech, Microsoft, Google, whatever. I'm not saying it's an existential threat to Microsoft.
No, not at all.
But it is interesting that there's more competition like this all of a sudden.
And what this is, the play here is make an AI centric productivity suite.
Yeah.
And the exit is, and you succeed, start eating some of Microsoft's lunch, and they buy you.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
That's the nice thing about being a tech giant. You don't have to figure this out. You wait for someone else to figure it out.
Just be smart enough to see who figured it out. Yeah. Okay. That's fair. And there's also,
which, by the way, is the plan in the boardroom of the little guy. If we nail this, one of the big guys will show up with a 3 comma number.
Hopefully not Salesforce, but yeah, one of them. Yeah, that's a good point. I just thought of this as we were talking. I didn't write this anywhere, but I guess you could view this to like what I'll call office productivity, which is very email centric still, right? In the same way that you look at like Dia or Opera Neon for web browsers. It's like we have this thing, we understand it. It's probably going to change a lot because of AI. What happens if we just go into it with that as the focus? Like if you were going to start this thing over right now, a thing Microsoft would not do, right? I think Google probably would not do. They're kind of entrenched. What does that look like?
This is an exercise that senior Microsoft people do occasionally. Then look at like, does it make any sense?
Yep. And this is
is what competitive analysis looks like. Like if you had a chance to start over, what would you do? What would it look like? That lets you look for threats.
Yeah, I mean, there was a big push for a web-based or a Java-based Office suite from Microsoft in the late 90s, early 2000s. They played around with it. And, eventually the leadership of that part of the company was like, actually, this thing is not going to destroy our business. It just makes sense for us to keep going with what we have and have it work with Office document types, et cetera, et cetera. You can publish to the web or whatever it is. And it seems like it's worked out. I mean, obviously, as the cloud era happened, Microsoft 365 now is, gangbusters. It's gone great.
The focus of Office 365 all along was to compete with the G Suite. Right?
Yes, right.
That's who they were afraid of.
Right.
And so it definitely what drove them. And that's why they had iOS and Android versions of Word and Excel in 2011. They just weren't allowed. They weren't allowed to release them until Win 8 failed. As soon as Win 8 failed, they came out.
Yeah. Suddenly, meeting customers where they were started to make sense.
Well, they were told by certain people, you're not going to need any of that because Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8 are going to sweep the market, and it'll all be Office all the time.
We were so innocent then.
It was a simpler time, Paul, for simpler people. Well, I know what I want.
And you're good.
I want our Xbox and gaming segment, and I want it badly. But before I do that, I just should tell everybody, you're listening to Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell, and we're so glad you're here. We hope you'll keep listening. We do the show live for your delectation. If you want to watch live, you don't have to. Most people don't. They mostly download the podcast. But if you want the absolute freshest version, every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. And we stream live on 8 different platforms, of course, in the Club Twit Discord for club members. But there's also YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, X.com, and Kick. So if you're in the chats in any of those places, I see you. Jamie and some knucklehead in YouTube, that's his actual handle, or hers. I feel like Romper Room. I feel like Miss Nancy. And I see you, Chocolate Milk Mini Sip. And I see you, El Rao, and Joseph, and all the people in all the chat rooms of all the world joining us every Wednesday for Windows Weekly. So glad you did. Thank you. Thanks to our club members for making this all possible. Now, I've delayed long enough. It's time for the Xbox segment. Mr. Thurrott, I see you. I don't have a magic mirror or anything, but
I mute and then I forget.
I mute. What can I say?
I misplaced one of the stories. Just real quick, if you're familiar with the Cursor AI code editor.
Oh, yes.
It's based on Visual Studio Code, right?
Yes, yes.
They just announced something called Cursor Web this past week, which is actually for desktop or mobile. It's not Cursor on the web, but what it is a front end to the ability to manage, including create Cursor agents. And these are the things that run in the background and do complex tasks for you. So I sort of think of it like the Adobe Firefly. Firefly? Is that the right time? Yeah, Firefly.
That's their
mobile app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's their image generator.
You're not going to sit there and, do complicated graphics on your phone, but you might be out in the world and be like, oh, I have a really good idea. And then you can say it or type it into the thing and have it create images. And you can go back when you're at your desktop and work with them in the full experience. And this is sort of like that, but for the AI agents that will work on your behalf.
And Cursor is very popular for coders. I like Claude Code, which is command line, but Cursor is very popular.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think, yeah, I haven't used it in a while, but my couple of experiences with the Cursor were actually very positive. The amount of feedback you got, and because one of the things I think they did first, it was certainly the first I had seen, was it's kind of what I think of as like whole project code, not triage, but code quality. We kind of look at the whole thing and then come back, because a lot of times with code you'd be like, here's a method or a line of code, like how can I make this better? And it's like it would examine multiple files in an entire project and come back with this gigantic list of like, here's all the things you need to fix, or that could be better. And it's a little depressing too, but impressive, right?
Yeah. There's some things you could do, like write tests for me that are really useful, right?
Yep.
Really
time
useful.
savers, like just smart. So it's not the full Cursor experience, but again, you're on the look. We all have whatever lives we have. You're thinking in the back of your brain about work, and suddenly this idea strikes, and you're like, oh, and you can just throw it in there. And the next time you sit at your computer, bring up Cursor, and you can see, what.
I'm really excited though about my idea of having this AI server in the closet. That
I
really want
your
this
laser
local AI.
I love the local thing blows my mind, because it's the one thing that's just not really there yet.
No,
but given the speed at which this stuff, I mean, look, not every single week, but almost every single week, there is an announcement from someone. It could be Microsoft Phi, it could be Anthropic, it could be the Llama stuff, there where they take this tiny model that is now as good as what used to be an LLM that had to run in the cloud.
And I bought 8 terabytes of storage. It doesn't have to be that tiny. And I bought 28 gigs of RAM. It doesn't have to be minuscule. It's not running on an iPhone.
Yeah, but you might. But actually, the reality for your machine, as well as any computer, really is you're not going to be running a model. You're going to be running dozens of models, all of them tailored to specific things, right? So
the thing I'm excited about is the idea that it will have all the context. See, I have to start different conversations. Then the context is fragmented, but if it's all in that one box,
right? You need like an aggregation thing where whatever conversation you have with ChatGPT or whatever you're using somehow makes its way back.
Actually, they are working on that right now. The idea of having a consultation among the various AIs.
Today we call that exporting bookmarks, but it's very
Leo
similar.
seems to be upset today. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah. He was trying to find a shirt the other day and could not find the right color. He was
it'll be like that Pixar movie where all the emotions in your brain are fighting it out. It'll kind of be like that. I have a feeling inside my home AI box. Anyway, it's an experiment.
You seem like supercharged about this. I just think the problem is local AI has amounted to like nothing so far.
I know.
This is the only.
Some people use it. Some of our Darren likes his local AI. I think it takes some work and tuning, right?
Yep. No, but just like general chatbot stuff. You can do this right now, Visual Studio Code, AI, whatever it's called, AI Studio, whatever, but I'm sure there are multiple ways. You can download models and then just interact with them from the command line as if it were, because it's a chatbot. You interact with it the same way you interact with ChatGPT or whatever in the cloud. And mixed results, right? I mean, it depends on a lot of things. I guess it depends on what you're doing, right? And they probably get better all the time. I'm sure eventually it will be fine, but I don't know. Like you want this to go from being like barely acceptable to being good enough, and then to being kind of roughly on par, at least for what you need it to do.
Right.
Like you don't always want to be behind with it, but
right. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Cool.
that's AI Redux. We thought we were done with the AI, but like a bad
It just
breakfast
keeps
burrito bowl, it
dragging
just
me
keeps
back.
coming up. Yeah,
Exactly. Yep.
Now can we do the Xbox?
Okay.
Now, please.
Sorry. So I already mentioned that Microsoft was shutting down The Initiative, which is the name of that game studio that was working on Perfect Dark, and also shutting down a game called Ever Wild, which is Rare, which is the company that made Perfect Dark, if I'm not mistaken, the original one. I think it's all the same. Yeah, so that's happening. Whatever, that's too bad. This one is
Everwild
just
was a game, right?
Yeah, this is an open world, what do you call it?
So the Initiative is a studio, but there was Everwild and Perfect Dark are two different games.
Yes, I'm sorry, right, and two different studios technically. I mean, like Rare made the original Perfect Dark, and I think Perfect Dark Zero, but then the Initiative was doing the
next one,
the reimagining or whatever it was, because it's not happening. So the Xbox 360, we don't talk about this console enough, because it came out 20 years ago.
It's really old, yeah.
It's really old, but they're updating the dashboard. Don't worry, it's not to make it faster. They're actually gonna try to sell you a new Xbox, because this thing is 20 years old, literally 20 years old.
I don't have any left.
Yeah, I'm surprised anyone does, honestly, given how unreliable
keep
these
it
things
running.
were. Yeah. It's probably good as a space heater, though.
At 20 years, I would expect the traces to start becoming off the board now, right?
Right. It's like the Atari computers you got to drop from like a height of 6 inches just to seat all the chips, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep. I wouldn't drop an Xbox, so the thing would probably explode.
Well, it's one way to get a new Xbox. Drop the old one.
Yeah. I don't know what happened. It's I guess it had trouble loading Call of Duty. Yeah.
Something.
Was the best-selling Xbox of all time, by the way. But okay. Yeah. So there's that. It is July now, and I'm skipping ahead, but I'll skip ahead. Who cares? So we have new Game Pass games across all the different consoles. I want to point out again, Game Pass, whatever those versions are, game streaming, Xbox Cloud Gaming, which is game streaming, Xbox consoles, typically Series X and S, but still Xbox One, and then what we're now going to call Xbox on Windows, which I know Windows. We'll just call it Windows. So we have a bunch of new games there. Some of these you might have actually heard of. We were making fun of and talking about the Tony Hawk stuff, so that's there.
The
fun Rise
games, man. You can't make too much fun of them.
I'm just for no reason, really. It's just standard bully activity. Rise of the Tomb Raider, which is now,
the precursor games.
It just keeps coming. It's crazy, like how many times this has been everywhere. It's everywhere. Yeah, it's everywhere. I've been noticing in the Xbox app on Windows that Call of Duty World War II, which was the most recent World War II era Call of Duty game, is now available through Game Pass. So that's a first for that game. I think they probably announced that last couple weeks ago, but that's actually still a good game. Like the problem once you've played like the Modern Warfare games is like you have all these advanced weaponry and like drones and airstrikes and stuff, and then you go back to it's not
back to an M1 Grand. Good luck.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, exactly. Like it's
5 shots and you reload.
It's stupid. Like, hold on, I'll kill you in a second. Just stand still. But that game actually did a nice thing. Like they kind of balanced it out, so it made sense in a modern context, even though it was kind of classic weapons and stuff. But that's a good one. And then this is crazy, but the studio that is making Halo games now has been renamed in the past year, I think, to Halo Studios, and used to be 343. 343 came about when Bungie left Microsoft, right? Microsoft kept the Halo franchise and then created 343, now Halo Studios. They have teased that they will later tease what's coming for the franchise in October. So it's a tease of a tease. I'm going to guess, going on the limb, it's probably going to be a Halo game. You know, a game that begins with H and ends in O.
Crazy talk.
Yeah, but they had sometime, I think it was late last year, shown off some early graphics of Halo ported to the Unreal Engine, which freaks some people out, just like Edge running on Chromium or whatever freaks some people out, but awesome. And it wasn't just graphical quality and all the other things you get with that. It was really about getting developers that understood the engine, because one of the big problems they had bringing people into 343 at the time was Halo had its own engine, which was unique and kind of weird, and no one knew how to use it. So it took months to get people up to speed on this thing. And now they're hoping they'll be able to go to market more quickly. October is interesting because we know that Xbox Ally will be out by probably around that time frame. Microsoft has talked publicly about new hardware, specifically portable like Xbox Ally type hardware, but also next gen consoles, working with AMD. I think it was Richard who pointed out that semi-notable, we don't see a lot of big franchise games, and some of the bigger ones have been delayed till next year, and that these things may all be pointing to whatever the next console is, probably PC based, right, as we've been talking, and that Halo, the next Halo, would be part of that, as it should be. I hope also, as they're doing this, that they do something on mobile too, because as I keep harping on, they bought Activision Blizzard allegedly in part for this mobile stuff and have done nothing with it. And they do have a handful of really good franchises, Halo being the best. And obviously there are some Halo games on mobile, but they're not like what I would call real Halo. And I'm sorry, but my iPhone and iPad and whatever else, whatever mobile device you have could play those games very effectively. So we'll see, but we have to wait.
And Blizzard's got Diablo Immortal, which is, you know, it made the Diablo fans angry, but it is a pretty good mobile game, and it's a contemporary mobile game. It's like
that's actually a fun one. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Microsoft, the Xbox games like the Halo games like Halo Spartan or whatever it was called, or sort of like that. The top-down view, you know, the guy runs around. They're okay. I mean, you get to see all the familiar, you know, vehicles and characters and stuff. But we want Halo, you know, we want first-person Halo. You know, we want the thing. We want the real thing. So,
well, how long has it been since we had a genuinely new Halo game?
When the first one came out, 2001. Yeah, maybe Halo 3.
It's been a hot minute, man.
It sure has.
But they're far more likely to do a remake, or you know.
Yeah. So actually, I do think part of the announcement is going to be another. I don't know if it'll be like a Master Chief box set like they did previously for Halo, but if not, certainly the first game, maybe the first 3 games, whatever. But another remastering, upscaling, whatever quality improvement, maybe port it to this new engine kind of a thing. And that means PlayStation, right? It has to.
Yep.
Has to. And look, I get it. I can already hear people groaning, but you know what? That's if you care about this stuff, like you want it on Sony. You want it there. I want it on iPad. I want it everywhere. Yeah, exactly. We'll see. That's just speculation, but given the way this year has gone and the games that have come, you know, cross-platform, and the other ones I talked about that haven't yet, I think it has to happen. I think it's the right thing to do. So we'll see. Did I mention layoffs? There were some layoffs.
So refreshing.
Okay. Who wants to talk about layoffs? Honestly,
sorry.
I have been playing Expedition 33 on my Game Pass. I was very happy.
Yeah.
To hear that was available. So,
what type of game? You mentioned this earlier.
It's a role-playing game. It's French, so it's not like anything. It's done in Unreal Engine. You know, you're out there. I don't know. It's what would you call it?
Is it like it looks like it's like a fantasy world thing, like elves?
Yeah. No. You're a person. Okay. There's a bad person called the Paintress who has somehow co-opted the world and slagged it over. And you're on an expedition with a bunch of other humans to go to her island to find her and destroy her. Because one of the things she's doing is when you reach a certain age, you turn into rose petals and disappear. And so
you just described a mashup of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and
it's actually it's like Final
Logan's
Fantasy.
Run.
It's got a little Final Fantasy to it.
Yep.
It's a turn-based RPG, says Anthony Nielsen. That's what it is.
Okay.
The combat's turn-based, but the rest of it is kind of a lot of cutscenes, a lot of real-time story mode thing. I don't know. Anyway, I was pleased to see that instead of paying $50 for it, I could play it on Game Pass.
Yep.
And I did last night. I mentioned before the show began that I hadn't used my Xbox in some time.
Yep.
And logging in was a great big fail.
I did this recently myself, but I didn't go through what you went through. I just wanted to make sure it was up to date or whatever.
It had been keeping itself up to date. I was very pleased to see that.
That's what I found too in my case. Yeah. I guess I left it on the inefficient power mode where it's always like, sitting there sucking the bandwidth.
I was really pleased because normally when I used to be for years when I turned on the Xbox, I'd have a 15 gigabyte update.
You're like, I want to play Call of Duty. You're like, nope, it's going to
be back. It's going to be come back later.
You're going to be rebooting a couple of times, buddy. It's going to take a while.
So I was thrilled. It actually had updated itself. It had the latest update. But when I logged in and put up a QR code, when I said, okay, I want to be, it knew who I was, but it said you have to re-log in. I put up a QR code, so I took a picture of the QR code, took me to the Microsoft site. It said, enter that code that's on the screen.
I don't mean to interject, but I mean, obviously you had a seamless, excellent experience. It worked great. Right?
Before I could enter the 8 characters, it said, nope, time's up.
Right.
You're like,
you're like 8 seconds, hey, go faster.
And then it said, request a new code. I said, yes. Stop! Time's up. I did this 4 or 5 times, and I was screaming louder and louder each time. So I went out and I Googled it and said, it turns out this is not, well, I don't know, common, but it happens. This too short timeout for the code. And they said the fix is to either possibly removing your account and re-entering it.
It can't be.
But the best fix is just reset the whole machine, which I did.
Man,
I feel like that could have been fixed otherwise, but.
Well, if it happens again, I'll call you.
I just did this myself, like I said, but I don't remember what
it was extremely frustrating. Anyway,
I feel like it just
once I got it going, and then I downloaded, of course, 800 gigabytes of worth of game because it's
sure.
But I was able to play this game, and I spent a couple hours last night, enjoyable hours. Mm-hmm. So now I'm saying, I pay for this Game Pass. What else can I do with it?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there now.
New games are out.
Oh, sorry. I did this one earlier. I skipped ahead.
You skipped ahead.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I did.
I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry.
I did this in a disjointed way. That was my fault.
You disjointed the Xbox segment?
Yeah, that's what happens.
I know it's crazy, but
sorry.
Did you use a butcher's knife to disjoint it? Or?
Yeah, it's like when Steve Jobs took the Apple logo off his Mac because he was mad, and it's like a gouged hole in it. That's what I did.
Really? Did that the truth?
Yeah.
Did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
He gouged the Apple out of his Apple Mac?
Yep. Also, when he came back to Apple, someone asked him if he wouldn't mind signing his Apple keyboard. And he said, sure, but I'm going to remove all the keys I would never put on there. And he took off the entire function row, the 4 arrow keys. Thing looked like it was destroyed. He goes, here you go, Steve Jobs.
Here's your toothless
Enjoy
keyboard.
your stupid Apple keyboard with a numeric keypad on the side and whatever else was on it. Yeah.
That's hysterical.
Awesome. He was a good guy. I miss him.
All right. Before we get to the back of the book then, because that's what's next, right? Or did you not do everything? Did you do everything?
I'm sorry that I've introduced uncertainty. That is the next. Yes, I'm sorry.
Hey, if you just do uncertainty and don't do fear and doubt, I'll be happy.
I didn't mean to embrace chaos. I'm sorry.
Well, let me tell you, folks, I would like to embrace our Club Twit Time. Let me give a plug for the best darn club in the whole wide world. Club Twit is how we make this all happen. To be honest with you. We realized, Lisa, not me, Lisa, our CEO, our wonderful esteemed business manager, realized at COVID that advertising was kind of starting to disappear. It was turning into rose petals and fluttering away. And we thought we won't be able to make payroll next week. So she said, let's do the club. Let's give our audience a chance to support us. And that has been a huge success now, almost 5 years in. We are so thrilled with the response, and I think we've given you a pretty a good deal on this. The club now literally subsidizes 25% of our overhead. So without you, we would have to cut shows, we'd have to cut people. So it's really valuable. $10 a month. Now, because you're giving us money, we don't have to show you ads or in any way track you. So you get tracker-free. You get your own unique tracker-free feed with no ads, not even this plug for Club Twit in it. So you get a pristine version of this show. You also get access to the Club Twit Discord, which I got to tell you is more and more fun to hang out in. Smart people, interesting people, really into, all the geeky stuff that we're into. And in the club, we do a lot of events. All the keynotes, the Microsoft Ignite keynote was in the club, as was the Google I/O, the WWDC keynote. We're also doing, and I should mention this because we've been talking a lot about AI. The AI user group will normally the first Friday of the month. We're moving it to the second Friday because guess what? The first Friday of this month is the 4th of July. So we're going to do it July 11th this month. That's a great place to club members get together, and we could talk about how we're using AI, best practices. We did a lot of vibe coding last time. Lou Maresca joined us. He's the guy who's putting AI into Microsoft Excel and Python, and so he was great. I think we're going to talk a little bit about prompts and stuff and chat bots on the 11th. We also will be doing right before that, actually, photo time with Chris Marquardt, our photo expert. Micah's Crafting Corners coming up on the 16th. That's a chill place to hang out. We've got Stacy's Book Club coming up. Last week we did a thing on music, digital music versus vinyl. It was really fantastic. And you can also see this. We've got a date for the book club. Thank you, Anthony. This is How You Lose the Time Wars, the book. Fascinating book. Quick read, too. It's only a few hours on Audible. August 8th, 1 p.m. Pacific. August 8th, 1 p.m. Pacific. So all of this is a way of making it fun to be a club member, but also I think the idea is giving you a reason to join and support us. And really, that's the most important thing you do in the club, with the club, is you show, it's like a vote for what you want and what you want more of. And we really appreciate it. If you're not a member, please do me a favor, twit.tv/Club Twit. We would really like to have you in the club. Enough said. Now, let's go to the back of the book with Mr. Paulie Thurrott. Paul?
Yes. So I have kind of a combination of tip and pick, if you will. Based on
a
tick. So I've been looking at, the stuff Apple's got coming out, iPad, but also Mac. And, Mac it's got its pros and its cons. I still find Windows to be better. But if you ever get that kind of Mac envy thing going, aside from just buying like a Surface laptop instead of a MacBook Air or whatever, from like a software perspective, I was thinking about like, what were the things I liked about the Mac and like, what could I do to make Windows more like that? So for example, the Mac has this full screen mode, which I really like, although it's inconsistent with other multitasking things. But basically the way they do it is they use their version of virtual desktops called Spaces, where full screen apps each have their own space. And then you can 3-finger swipe on the touchpad to go between them. Pretty cool. You can do that on Windows. If you have a touchpad, you can do a 3-finger, alt tab kind of a thing. It works similar. It's not as good, but whatever, it does kind of work. But, we have this taskbar thing that's on the screen, right? And so I was like, all right, let's get rid of the taskbar. Kind of like in Mac OS, like I'll be like, let's get rid of the menu bar, But what I found in both cases was that when those things aren't there, I miss something I didn't realize I was using all the time, which is the stupidest, simplest thing in the world, but it's the time. And so, the taskbar has the time and the date down in the corner, and on a Mac, they have it on the menu bar up in the top. So there are utilities that you can just put the time somewhere on screen, floating, whatever. And so I use one called DS Clock, which is actually pretty amazing. And I've started not displaying the taskbar on my computers, and you get that kind of space back. You can use the full height of the screen, etc. I'm trying it, right? If you are not ready to take that step, there is a utility in the Microsoft Store in Windows that is called what, Paul? I think it's called TB Translucent. Let me just make sure. Yep, our Translucent TB. This will make your taskbar translucent or transparent.
I'm sorry. When I hear TB, I hear tuberculosis.
Yeah,
so-
exactly.
Yeah.
It's probably the same.
Toolbar. Yeah.
So this is, on the Mac, they've made the menu bar transparent because that's what somebody wanted. I guess I have no idea. But to me, the single greatest feature on the Mac from a kind of UI or usage perspective is Spotlight. So Spotlight on the Mac is where it's I think it's the command key plus space, and then you just type, right? And we have this, right? So Power Toys has had this thing called Power Toys Run forever, and now they have a newer version called Command Palette, which is extensible, and it can do run various shortcuts of different kinds and do different things. And if you have apps, they can plug into it, et cetera, et cetera. But by default, they want to use Alt space. I change it to Windows key plus space. That makes more sense to me as a launcher. I wish I could just kind of get rid of the start menu, frankly, but that's not a thing. But you can use one of those tools, and to me, this is pretty much everything that's good about Spotlight. But we've had that on Windows forever.
Mm-hmm.
So there are these things, like just little things. So you can just maybe make Windows more bearable, or at least hold down that desire to spend a couple $1,000 on Mac hardware and software or whatever. But that's just a thought. And then this is almost apropos of nothing, but about a month ago, I started testing feed readers again, as I do from time to time. And I have stuck with the same thing I was using ever since Google Reader went out, right? Whenever that was, 2013
Back in the day,
or something.
it was a while ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. And I, at the time, picked something that I don't think I know anyone who uses, called The Old Reader. And it is a super Spartan UI, but you could import from your feed from Google Reader at the time, which I did, and I've been using it ever since until this year. So past month or so, The Old Reader was down for like a full day, which is bad. I actually use this thing all the time. And then it went down for another day, and I was like, okay, I gotta figure something out. There's a lot of good choices there, like Feedly and blah blah blah, whatever. But the thing I settled on, not settled, actually, I really love it, is called well, I'm actually not sure what it's called, but InnoReader or InnoReader.
Oh, I use InnoReader. I love InnoReader.
I love it.
It's the RSS feed reader. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's they have different views, which are all which are interesting. Some of them are a little more like a magazine style thing, but I just have a kind of a nice list view. It's fairly Spartan. Right click to open it in a different tab, all that kind of stuff. But the kind of almost the game changer for me on this one is there's a mobile app, and I didn't have a mobile app for the Old Reader, and so I would just use the web view, but it was like the desktop web view. They didn't have a mobile version, so it was always kind of terrible. So I didn't do it that much. But now that I have this on mobile, I can keep up with my feed when I'm not like in front of the computer, and I actually kind of love that. And it has read it later stuff. I don't use that. I use Instapaper for that, but you can just Instapaper integrates with it through the extension, so you just
this is my feed, so it's all the news stuff that I have to
so
look
that
for.
view
right?
you have it, like if you go to the top right, the third icon in, I think from the right, the third one in is probably the different views.
Yeah.
So I think I
Card,
used
list, expanded columns,
like
magazine.
I used expanded,
you like the magazine?
Yeah, that one. I'm sorry, that's it. Yeah, magazine.
Yeah.
It's just it's nice. It's
yeah.
just,
it's pleasant. It's a pleasant read.
Yeah, and it also like auto updates. So if there's like an update, like if there are new articles in the feed, you just go to that tab, and at 1 second, it's like, oh, here they are.
It's ironic because this is really what Google Reader was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Until Google gave up because no one uses RSS feeds.
I use RSS all day, every day.
Every day. It's how I check the news for all of our shows.
Yep. It's not the only thing I use, but honestly, it's the primary thing. It's it's good.
Me too. I do it on my iPad.
Right. I have this thing everywhere now because of the. I love it. I love it. My iPad is mostly for reading, and so most every app in my dock is a reading app of some kind, and that's in there now. It's wonderful.
And now, I save it out to Raindrop, which then has a little Zapier script, which puts it in a spreadsheet, which the producers then put into a rundown because we don't use Notion on other shows. We use Google Sheets, but it's a very easy workflow, and it has a little button I can just click, and it's great.
Yeah. Nice.
I've gotten smitten with Raindrop. That's just a good.
Isn't Raindrop the best?
Yeah.
I swear. I was a pinboard, devotee.
Mhm.
Have a lifetime subscription. But I feel like Raindrop.io, I pay for it. It's worth I pay for NO Reader as well.
Yeah. See, I don't have to pay for it yet.
The free does most of what you want.
Yeah, it's mostly like a number of article or number of feeds you can have. I think it's 150 on
That's
Reader.
plenty.
It's 100 on most other ones, and it's fine for me. But I don't use if I use the other stuff in the app, I might, I'd be okay paying for it, but I just don't have to.
Yeah. Good choice for your app of the week. I love it. Now let's say hello to Richard Campbell.
Hello to Richard Campbell.
And run his radio.
Where did this Jewish mother come from?
I don't know who I am. I don't know who or what.
You don't need enough.
You don't need to know. What do you get? Have some noodles.
What was wrong with the other show?
Run his radio. You had a pretty good guest there, it looks like.
It's one of the build series. Mr. Rasinovich dropped by, which is always a great day.
Now, who is this man no one's ever heard of?
Nobody's ever heard of this guy.
Have you ever read his mysteries or his novel? Whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Are they good?
In fact, I even hijacked one of my own run-as just to talk about his books. He was a little.
They're a lot like the Daniel Suarez stuff.
Yeah,
honestly, but he hasn't written one in forever. It's been a long time.
No, I think he proved his point that he could do it, and then he moved on.
It's no way to make money.
No,
to be honest with you, to writing books.
I think he's okay with the money, but
he also did it the old-fashioned way. Like he wrote it and then shopped it around for a publisher.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
He didn't bother. It's not like he needed the advance or anything, right? So
right, exactly.
He did just fine. But he's got a pretty cool job these days as Azure CTO, and he runs this group called the Azure Innovations Lab, and a lot of experimentation happens in there. And so, I don't know, every other year or so, I check in with him. It's like, what are you working on? What's fun for you right now? And we ended up in a long conversation, probably the first half of the show, really talking about what they're doing with the optimized hardware in the cloud, the ARM chipsets and things like that, and the fact that he has certain large customers that matters to them, like ultra large memory, ultra multi-CPU configurations for these specific customers. And then after they see how they operate for a while, they might make it a publicly available product. So, the right customer comes at them with the right problem space. They will literally build an innovative set of hardware or set of solutions for them and then decide whether or not that's going to come available. So when you see these new lines of configurations for virtual machines and things in Azure, that's where it's from. It's from these experiences. And that's where a lot of the ARM chipset stuff is living right now, is that they are running with these custom implementations for specific customers before they decide exactly how they're going to land it publicly. So I appreciated that conversation just from a viewpoint of this is how products get developed at this scale and in the Azure space. So that was good fun. We did talk a little bit about the build side of things, and he loved the material science demo where they came up with the new non-conductive fluid.
Wasn't that cool? I loved it too.
It was a great play, and so he had a role to play in that. So we talked a bit about when it went on there, this idea of actually developing material science things through generative AI software. And finished out the show talking a little bit about quantum, because of course they had the announcements at Microsoft Quantum on their new hardware design and if and when that's going to appear. And he's like, you're very unlikely to ever see this stuff in a machine at home. This is going to be live in the cloud. And we did end up speaking a bit about the whole, when will you use quantum versus when will you use some other supercomputer, the HCS or HCI configurations, things like that. And the idea that eventually we'll have a coordinator that'll decide how to run our software for us, that we won't be making those choices. And that, it'll be based on cost, time of render, available resources, that kind of thing. So it's like, it's not up to you. You don't care. It's what's the quickest I could do it or what's the cheapest I could do it. And off it goes.
Nice.
So, yeah, another great, can't go wrong with Mark, full stop.
Oh my God, yeah.
Well, and I see this on the stats, right? As soon as that show dropped late last night, it was a double download.
Everybody loves
immediately.
Mine. Yeah.
I get a base download, I don't know, 25, 30,000. normal, and then this is already over 50.
It's funny. How do people know? I mean, how do they? Oh wow, Mark Tersinovich. I mean,
I literally think people have searches on the name, right?
Oh, maybe they do.
And they grab it, so they're not subscribers. Like that subscriber is you see that big hit when you drop the show. The subscribers kick in within the hour, and then you see this next wave, and then some. I find it really interesting. Sometimes some of that stuff makes press, and you get another bump.
Oh yeah.
One of my other shows from a couple of weeks ago just got a press bump. It's just all of a sudden another 10,000 downloads out of nowhere. So those are good days.
We speaking of CTOs, we have a John Graham Cumming, the CTO of Cloudflare, is going to be joining us in about half an hour for
wow, his AI filter. What?
Yeah, exactly. How long's that going to
huh?
take? We need that yesterday, by the way.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's the problem.
So that'll be interesting.
I like this thought that it might even be honeypotted. Like you're going to poison the AI. Like that.
They did that. They've done that, right? Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah. But that's not what we're doing now, because today it's Whiskey Day.
Yeah, it's Whiskey Day every day.
Every day it's Whiskey Day.
Every day is Whiskey Day.
It's also just past. It's the day after Canada Day, so of course I have to talk about a Canadian whiskey. And
you mean there's something beside Crown Royal out there?
And there, and Crown's awesome. And I've done 2 or 3 different Crowns, so I've given Crown a lot of love. And I have talked about this week's distiller before, Alberta Distillers. I just never talked deeply about the distillery. But this particular whiskey, I do not have a bottle here. It was at the Canada celebrations I was at. They were doing a tasting, so I had a taste of it and immediately wrote it up. This is Alberta Distillers 23-year-old rare batch #1. And what's rare about it? Well, for starters, it's a 23-year-old whiskey from Canada. That's weird. And it was pretty darn tasty. It was also 100% rye, which is odd.
I thought all Canadian whiskey was rye whiskey.
Well, they're often called rye whiskeys, but they're not all rye. So let's get into that. But first, talk a little bit about Alberta Distillers. They're not one of the nouveau distilleries. They've been around since 1946. They're founded in Calgary. 3 partners, Max Bell, who was a rancher. Okay, Alberta, that makes sense. Frank McMahon, who is an oil man. Oh, yeah. Okay, Alberta. Yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah. And George Rifle, who was the distiller and a very skilled distiller. He'd worked in Japan. He'd worked in Scotland. He was making beer and his own spirits, and they recruited him in the founding of the company. Back in 46, when they built it on 23 acres at the edge of the city of Calgary. Today, that's now kind of the middle of Calgary. They expanded to 42 acres in 1975. They picked that location because A, they were all Albertans, so they wanted to be Alberta, and B, it was right on 2 separate rail lines. So all of their materials come in by rail because, of course, they're inland. They're also at altitude. That's the east side of the Rockies there. So they're at about 1,000 meters or 3,200 feet or so, which this is not Denver by any stretch of the imagination, but it's high enough that it does impact the environment that the whiskey's going to mature in. And so they build temperature-controlled warehouses because the wintertime in Calgary can get extremely cold, -40. It does occur in a place like Calgary. They get nice summers. Famously, in wintertime, there's these winds they call the Chinooks, which are a warm wind on an icy cold day. So their warehouses are massive, 600,000 barrels.
You are a warm wind
on an icy cold day.
Icy cold day. And they do both rack and pallet style. This is not a place for a tour, Alberta Distillers. This is very much a factory, and they've gone through the normal things that happen to whiskey companies over the years. They were acquired by American Brands in '86. Of course, American Brands became Fortune Brands in '97. And then in 2011, the entities were reshuffled again, and that's when Beam acquired all of the spirit products, and then Beam itself, that's Jim Beam out of Kentucky, that was then acquired by Suntory in 2014 to make Beam Suntory, and then recently, 2024, that was renamed to Suntory Global Spirits. So that's the company. And column stills and pot stills, so their main products are a line of vodkas like Banff Ice and Northern Keep and Alberta Pure, typical names for vodkas, and then whiskeys, Alberta Premium, Alberta Springs, and Rifle Rye after the distiller, Mr. Rifle. They also make whiskey for a lot of other companies, many you've heard of, like Canadian Club, Masterson's Rye, Jefferson's Rye, and Whistle Pig. I also think that Pendleton Rye, which we've talked about here before, came from them.
They make
And
Whistle
also-
Pig?
Yeah, they make Whistle Pig.
Huh.
And that's known. Like they admit that this big facility that produces an awful lot of whiskey. And remember, the whiskey travels, it used to at least, travel easily back and forth across the border. Right now, nothing travels across the border particularly well. And I also mentioned another Canadian whiskey called Bareface. And when I looked at the description of how Bareface, that was the one with the big slashes in the bottle.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
And I remember when I was looking at how they were making the whiskey, because they're in British Columbia. Now you come out of nowhere with a 7-year-old plus whiskey. It's that I was pretty sure they're buying from Alberta Distillers a 7-year-old whiskey. And then they're doing a finishing step. They split it into like wine casks and Hungarian oak casks and age it for a year in the British Columbia wilderness. All very cool, but that's where it comes from. Because Canadian distillers, not just Alberta distillers, but several of them, do this thing that's different from the way Americans make whiskey, which is that they don't do mash bills. They don't combine different grains into a mash to produce the wort that will become the whiskey. They actually keep them separate. And Alberta Distillers specifically is famous for making true 100% rye. Now, why is that weird? And it's because rye is a very difficult grain to work with. The reason is that it has two things that are very important about the grain rye when it comes to whiskey making. One is that it's mostly composed of complex polysaccharides, which really is a way to say they're even longer chain carbohydrate sugars that are very difficult to break down into sugar that can be digested by yeast. And those long chains tend to make very thick mashes that stick to the equipment and don't flow through pipes well and create lots of foam. And so it's hard to make a bunch of it. When you're doing a fermentation, if you ever get a chance to go on a distillery tour where a ferment is running, you'll notice that the mash tun literally looks like it's boiling. It's not. It's not warm enough. It's only about 30 degrees centigrade in there. But there's enough carbon dioxide being produced that it's constantly turning over. Well, the rye mashes are so thick that instead of having this steady turnover that keeps the temperature even so the yeast stay healthy, it's so dense it heats up in the center and kills off the yeast because it can't move around. And so they have to use stirring equipment to keep the mash evenly mixed and keep the temperatures even so the yeast stay healthy, but it sticks to the stirring equipment, which damages the equipment. Like, it's really difficult to work with. And this is the other aspect of rye, besides the polysaccharides, is that it doesn't have a hull. And normally, whenever you make a grist, you combine a certain amount of fine ground flour with a medium grind and some hull. And the hull is mostly about creating spacing to keep the mash a little more fluid so it's easier to move around. And so the result is you just can't use as much rye mash per batch, which means you produce less alcohol, which means it's just a more expensive product to make. It's also a more expensive grain. I looked up today what the price per ton was for commercial grains. The cheapest is corn at about $165 a ton. Barley's number 2 at $170. Of course, these prices change. Wheat's at $195. Rye's at $220. So rye is more expensive. You can't use as much of it per batch. It's hard on your equipment. It's just, why would you do this to yourself when you can combine it with a few other grains and make your life easier and make a good product still? So 100% grain ryes are just weird. I also read a great piece about how prohibition devastated rye making, that the rye whiskey makers, the few companies that were good at making rye, most of them went bankrupt through the prohibition period. And so when people started back up, there wasn't a lot of people who knew how to make rye, and nobody cared. They were just in a rush to make whiskey quickly. And so that's when corn really emerged huge as the approach to whiskey for most places, and rye never caught on again. Now, Alberta Distillers, again, is famous for making 100% rye because they came up with a reliable process for it. So they don't malt their rye, which is something you can do. You soak it in water, let it sprout, and then dry it to help break down the sugars. And that used to be an older approach, but they don't do that at all. They only make a fine flour. So they don't do a mixed grist. They use a hammer mill, grind unmalted rye down to a fine flour. Then they add water and a custom-made proprietary enzyme called glucoamylase. So Alberta Distillers employs a microbiologist. Her name is Dr. Shannon Thomas, and she has matured this unique enzyme that's primarily glucoamylase, but also has a bunch of what they call side enzymes that work together to help break the rye down into sugars that the yeast can digest, and also introduce the set of flavors that people like from rye that tends to be a little spicier, a little more interesting. And then that successful digestion, so you don't make any methanol, you're just producing ethanol, can then be pushed as a wort into stills. And in Alberta Distillers uses both column stills and pot stills. You knew that because they make vodka. You need column stills to make vodka. And then pot stills. So they do this mixed combination where they make a more high distillate and a mid distillate. They do a little finishing in the pot stills. And then they split up the aging batch too. They use a bunch of ex-bourbon barrels. They will also reuse bourbon barrels after they've run through because they have a different flavor profile, and also new white oak out of Missouri, American oak. They're also not afraid to go in at fairly high alcohol levels. So traditionally, new bourbon goes into new American oak barrels at 62.5. And then the Scots and most everyone else, when they're reusing bourbon barrels, will go in at 63.5 because they can pick off a few other flavors. Under certain conditions, Alberta Springs will go as high as 78 going into the barrel. But because they're high and dry in places like in Alberta, they actually lose water faster than they use alcohol. So their barrels are known for increasing alcohol levels rather than decreasing alcohol levels. And it's typical because of a low humidity, relatively warm environment at certain times of the year. In the cooler times, it can go the other way. They can lose alcohol. But this is the same problem Kentucky battles with. Although I would point out they have actually bottled an 84%, 168 proof, which apparently was a hit at the time when they made it. So in some ways it's more Kentucky-ish because it does deal with that high and dry environment. They are willing to go to different alcohol levels. They're doing different kinds of extraction in the barrel. They also tend to go shorter term. Most Canadian whiskeys are not aged more than 3 or 5 years, maybe 7. Right? There's literally a standard commercial product that Alberta Distillers makes for other people, including folks like Barefaced, that's a 7-year-old. And then you do other things with it. Except for this old rare batch. This old rare batch was barreled in 2000. It's been sitting ever since, and they did a bottling in 2023, which is why it's a 23-year-old. And it is one of the most unusual whiskeys you'll ever taste because it's a very old, pure rye whiskey. It's bottled at 50% ABV, and it is only sold in Canada at about $150 a bottle.
And so we can't get it here in the States. Thanks a lot, Richard.
You have to come for a visit. Like,
Stupid Canada.
They're not
Actually, I suspect this is a problem with a lot of Canadian whiskeys nowadays, right?
True.
Yeah.
You have to get to a certain production level before it makes sense to ship south anyway, just from the cost perspective.
Well, and you have removed all American whiskeys from your shelves. So
at the moment, yes. Hopefully these days that will pass.
This is a trade war.
And a foolish one at that.
Benefits no one, especially whiskey drinkers.
Pretty sure it's hurting everybody right now.
Every once in a while, a bird flies through the web page.
Yeah, I was just noticing that. It looks
really
like,
cool.
Like the opening screen of a video game.
Yeah, it's great.
You know,
it's not all the time. It's just,
is that the Half-Life 3 home screen?
They don't have a page for this old batch one.
I was looking.
I
I
didn't
didn't
see
see
retail
it.
products.
Yeah.
I looked around. The only ones I found are actually on reseller sites. But it's like I said, it's a relatively rare whiskey. But they are. I can get them. There's none on the coast, or I would have gone and grabbed a bottle. There's a couple in the city, which I won't get to for another week.
When I was in Toronto, I used to have to go to a special state-run store to buy liquor. Is that true all through the CBOs everywhere?
Every province does it slightly differently. For a long time, BC was like that as well, but we've started having third-party licenses for some spirits.
Okay.
So my favorite whiskey store in Vancouver when I go is a place called the Legacy Liquor Store.
It's such an artifact of an earlier age.
Totally.
It's like the blue laws in New England, where like you can't buy fish on Tuesday. It's like it's like
unless you live near the New Hampshire border, then it's okay.
Thank you, Richard Campbell. As always, you make Windows Weekly fun, at least a little drunker. Anyway, at least that. Richard's at runasradio.com, and of course, he does that show with carlfranklin.net rocks. Both are at his website, runasradio.com. You're gonna be home for the summer, huh?
Yep, a few more weeks.
Nice.
Although I am taking a little jaunt tomorrow down to Snohomish to sit amongst the artillery fire that you call July 4th. There's nothing like a rural July 4.
It scares the dogs and the military vets, but the rest of us go, hey.
Yeah.
This is the special time of year where there are pop-up tents selling fireworks all over Pennsylvania, like in parking lots.
We finally got rid of that in Petaluma.
Yeah, it's crazy.
In fact, a kid just a few days ago was seriously injured in Petaluma with
this. Yeah, you're looking to blow your fingers off. This is the place.
Yeah, the coast, we don't allow fireworks at all because of the fire hazard. It's just too much forest here. Right? There are a few spots in Vancouver that have like city-based fireworks that are typically on the water.
Yeah, as they should be. So when they land, they're in the water.
It's bloody dangerous.
I have a friend who grew up in Pennsylvania farm country. And they used to set up bleachers out in the cornfield.
Sure.
And Uncle Jim, they sometimes call him Three Finger Jim, would go out there and do a homemade display that was apparently quite amazing.
I wonder how far away we are from simply drones replacing our firework displays.
They're not as fun. They're cool.
No, they're not as loud.
Yeah, and which the dogs and the vets like, but
also not as dangerous.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it takes some of the spunk out of the Independence Day.
Yeah, we also used to not bother with pro sports. We had hangings and gladiators.
Yeah, that's true. Things are
the good old days.
Civilized. Paul Thurrott is at Thurrott.com, THURRO.com. Become a premium subscriber for the extra goodness, the cherry on top, as it were. His books at leanpub.com, including The Field Guide to Windows 11 and Windows Everywhere, a lovely little kind of drive-by history of Windows through its programming frameworks. Let's see. We do this show, as I mentioned earlier, every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. If you don't watch live, you can always get a copy of the show at our website, twit.tv/WW. There's a YouTube channel. You see a link on that page, by the way, that's dedicated to the video. That's great for sharing clips. If you want to tell the world, tell your friends about the show. Best way to get any of our shows is subscribe in your favorite podcast client. You'll get it automatically the minute it's available. It's no charge to you, but I do have a request, if you would. If you're using one of those, like Apple Podcasts or Pocket Casts, or give us a good review. Leave us a 5-star review and tell the world about Windows Weekly. Special thanks to our club members. Thanks to you, Paul and Richard. Thanks to all you winners and you dozers. We're glad you are here. We'll see you next week on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.
Leo, the term dozers is not...
It's rude. It's rude. I tell you, it's rude.
It's discriminatory.
Well, he was spelling it Dousers. I don't know. Sure. That's something else.
Might be something else, yeah.
Yeah, dowser.
What am I doing with my hair? God.
Well, at least you got hair.
Yeah, in some places.
Wasn't a dowser somebody who can find water? Because he do dowser.
That's a Dowser, a dowser. Yes, I know. Yeah. Let me see if I can find his email, because it was
a dowager.
I merely explained to him that that's not what I'm saying. But
you're like, listen, stupid. No.
He says, or she. I'm sorry, Phyllis. I listen to some of the podcasts about Windows, and every show I hear Leo say winners and dowsers. I decided to find out what his comment means. Oh, I went online and I found the following. Now, every time I hear him say that, I find it disturbing. In my opinion, he needs to rethink his words and how they're making people feel. Oh, I may be a winner all the time, but I do not consider myself a total loser. Dowser is This is what the internet told her, is a less common term, but often carries a negative connotation. It can be interpreted as someone who douses or extinguishes the chance of success, either for themselves or others.
So I'm sorry. But let's say that is what you said. Isn't winners and losers an acceptable turn of phrase that describes everybody?
I could say winners and losers, but I don't. I say winners and does.
So what's the I still don't understand the problem.
She says,
given the
she concludes, I am 85 years young, and if I don't look in the mirror, I look and feel about 30. I know how you feel, Phyllis. I know exactly.
If I don't look in the mirror, I feel about 100. But okay.
It's just a play on Windows. Windows. That's all. And maybe I should adopt something nicer. You're all winners in my book because you listen to this show. Stay tuned. John Graham Cumming is coming up next. The CTO of Cloudflare. We'll have lots to talk about, including their new AI tool to filter out the bots. And the main reason I booked him a while ago is because he has created a new website for AI or for content that predates AI. So it's like low radiation steel. It's if you need content that has never been touched by AI, no M dashes, no delves. Anyway, that's coming up next. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Richard. Let me find a title before you go, because I know you like to keep track of that. Show titles. Three Finger Jim.
It's a good one.
Celebrating the holidays.
A little cautionary tale for the 4th of July. Uncle Jim, Three Finger Jim. All right, well, let's do it. That's good. I like it. I also like it.
Might be done. It's so good.
It came at the end of the show, so that's good. Thank you, gentlemen. Three Finger Jim it will be. It shall be. I'll put it in the Notion so you have a record of it.
Not M365 Copilot Weekly?
No.
Come on, I was partial to that one a little bit now.
Well, I'm telling you, I get a lot of pressure from Lisa to rename the show to give it a more enterprisey feel, because some advertisers say, oh, no, and same thing with MacBreak Weekly. We don't want any consumers. It's like, dude. We want IT decision makers, and they're not listening to Windows Weekly, are they? Yes, they are.
Well, if you don't want to go with Microsoft 365 Copilot Weekly, maybe you can go with the show title of "Don't Believe the House Hippo."
House Hippo's pretty good too.
It's probably a rat, or real. It's probably a rat, not a house hippo.
In a very elaborate costume.
Yes. House Hippos and Three Finger Jims.
Long tails.
House Hippos and Three Finger Jim. I like the combination.
That would make more sense for the enterprise. I mean,
all right, I got to run. Thank you, gentlemen. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 939, recorded Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025. The House Hippo. I added a definite article. Sounds better. Shift N. Thank you. It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. Richard Campbell is here. We'll talk about the second, or is it third round of layoffs at one of the most valuable companies in the world. Could be happening again. Also, the new Windows is here. You'll love the name. I'm sorry. I'm just teasing you. And we'll talk a little bit about Microsoft Copilot now coming to the Mac. All that and more coming up next on Windows Weekly. This week on Windows Weekly, Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell talked about Grammarly and their big acquisition. For more tech news all week long, tune in twit.tv. And if you like what you hear, I'd like to invite you to join our club. It's only $10 a month, and there are lots of benefits. Find out more at twit.tv/clubtwit. For Windows Weekly and our hosts, Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, I'm Leo Laporte. Thanks for listening.
All right.
Or three-fingered hippos. That would be good, too.
Three-fingered.
Okay, now stay tuned. Intelligent Machines is up next, but I am going to leave you. You'll have to restart in just a moment. Bye-bye.